Good afternoon. It's the NBA Deeper Dive for Wednesday, December 21st. We have a loaded 11 game slate, and no one better than Adam shipped my money to break this down today. Adam, how's your afternoon going?
Going pretty well. Looking forward to tonight's slate. Had a good slate last night, so hopefully can carry it over. This one seems like it's going to be really interesting because we are waiting on a ton of news.
Yeah, 11 game slate, 22 teams in action. There's going to be so much news to talk about throughout this show. And yeah, last night ended up going pretty well for me. I can't complain myself. We were, I think, both on Jade and Ivy a decent amount, which I think worked out for both of us. So I'll take that Jade and Ivy appreciation. Hopefully that carries over tonight. He's an intriguing price tag as well. We'll touch on him. But everyone who's joining us, hit that like button, subscribe button. Also, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. They have revolutionized the prop game over there. Exciting contest and potential overlay yet again tonight. Make sure to take advantage of that exclusive Stokastic offer we have. Producer Jordan Klein will drop something in the chat throughout the show. And hey, let's go ahead and get started right now. Milwaukee taking on Cleveland. Milwaukee is 2-point dogs last I checked against this Cleveland team, 216.5 total. And it's when it's Milwaukee, it's always going to be highlighted with Giannis. And with Giannis, there's also going to be Drew Holiday today. They continue to be out without Chris Middleton, as Middleton is doubtful. Giannis and Drew always going to be have some interest for me. Obviously, no Middleton. Cleveland spot on the other side, but I'm willing to take some chances here. It's an 11 game slate. The only unfortunate thing is if you're going to lock up Giannis, you're going to have to lock him up knowing so there might be late news that you're going to lock up a lot of salary. It's kind of an interesting timing perspective to handle the situation if you want to play Giannis or not, just because he's such a focal point and could obviously be the highest scoring player in the slate, regardless of matchup. Talk to me about the Giannis situation and like, is this a slate with his price tag? It's like, are you willing to like burn yourself and not play him?
Yeah, I especially on DraftKings. I typically just haven't been getting there to these top pay up options very frequently. I mean, like yesterday on the shorter slate, I was able to get to a lot of Jokic and Morant, but on slates of this size, you just are going to have so many good like 8 to 10K type plays that paying all the way up for Giannis is pretty tough to do, even when you do have value. And I think we're going to get plenty of value opening up as we get news. Right now, it's not the best cheap value, but plenty of time before lock. But either way, like there's just so many good plays that are still $2,000 or $3,000 less expensive than Giannis. On FanDuel, I think he's a little bit easier to get to because he is a little bit less expensive, has small forward and power forward eligibility. The matchup against Cleveland isn't very appealing either. But one thing that is actually kind of nice is that this is as likely as pretty much any game to actually go down to the wire. So maybe you can get a little bit more playing time from Giannis, even though it is a slow-paced Cleveland team. It's a very good team defensively. But on DraftKings right now, we have Giannis pulling basically no ownership. And whenever that's the case, there's always some appeal to saying like, well, Giannis can drop 90 fantasy points and I just win if he's 1% owned. But, also that's clearly very unlikely to happen. And there's a lot of low owned plays that are a little bit less expensive that I'm going to probably get to first.
Yeah, it's a this whole team is coming in super low owned across the board on both sides. That reason alone, I'm willing to take some chances with Giannis, and hopefully, there's a chance that obviously he can be great. It's Giannis, so I'm willing to take some chances with him, both on FanDuel and Yahoo. Yeah, that DraftKings price tag is difficult, but then there's Drew at 8,400, 8,700 on FanDuel. It's a tough price tag to go to Drew. There's such great options later on in the night where this team is going to come in under owned. Therefore, alone, that's a lot of merit to take some chances in tournaments. But keep in mind, an 11 game slate, locking up this salary, you might just bury yourself before the night really even begins. Any final thoughts on this Bucks team? I mean, it's really hard to go to these guys just because of the situation we presented right now. But any interest in a guy like Brook Lopez, who has been awesome all season long, 5,600, 6,500. Final thoughts on this Bucks team?
There's nothing that really stands out. I think other than Giannis, Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez are both mildly appealing just because, you should get around 35 minutes from Holiday at 8,400. He's been about a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy without Middleton this year. Lopez should play around 32 minutes. You do have a big Cleveland front court as well, so it's likely that you get a little bit more of Lopez and Portis alongside each other. But in the overall, grand scheme of the slate, it's just nothing that I'm really interested in here.
Yeah, it's low on guys. There's some tournament appeal for me. But keep in mind, I really don't want to burn myself up and burn all the salary if there's going to be potential news, which certainly there has been every night it felt like this week, as is most nights in the NBA. Onto the Cleveland side we go. Hit that like button for us as we near, also subscribe button as we near 85,000 subscribers. Jordan Klein, what's the live count on the subscriber count right now? Thanks, producer. Thanks. I really was hoping you would have that ready to go. No, I'm just kidding. But onto the Cleveland side we go. 9,100 Donovan Mitchell, 8,800 on FanDuel. I like Mitchell on that FanDuel price tag. Garland comes in at $7,800 on both sites. I think he's a solid option. $32.35 for Garland and Mitchell over there on Yahoo, respectively. There's some tournament options here to go to. Like we said, it's another situation. You're going to lock up some salary. I like these guys' price tag a little bit better than maybe the Bucks guys, especially Garland, where you get that 3-point bonus on DraftKings. They're just like solid options. They're getting some ownership. It's an 11 game slate. Mobley is getting the most across the board at 7,100 over there on FanDuel. He's fine to take a chance on. Nothing like I'm not looking to get aggressively above the field on any of these Cleveland guys, similar to the Bucks here. But any interest for you? Do you have like a preference in a cab to go to in tournaments tonight?
They kind of look similar to me across the board. I think this is an appealing team in tournaments in the sense that there's not a lot of ownership coming in here. And the whole team, I mean, at least the relevant guys are pretty much priced correctly. So it makes sense why they're not, jumping out as really popular options. But individually, 80 or 9,100 for Mitchell, 7,800 for Garland. Those are both very reasonable price tags. They should both play 36 or 37 minutes here. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are pretty much correctly priced. The guy pulling the most ownership on DraftKings right now is actually Kevin Love at 3,800, pulling 8%. He played 24 minutes last game. I don't think you can project 24 minutes again, but I did go to the 20 that he had been averaging in games with Jared Allen prior to his injury. We had seen for the most part his minutes climbing in recent games with one exception. And then here you're getting this matchup against a Milwaukee team that is frequently going to have two of Giannis, Lopez, and Portis on the floor. So it should be pretty easy to go to some Jared Allen plus Kevin Love lineups or Evan Mobley plus Kevin Love lineups for Cleveland. So right now, Love is getting some ownership. That probably comes down a little bit as we get more injury news later, but he makes sense at that sub 4K price tag. And then I think any of Allen, Mobley, Mitchell, Garland are good last piece in type guys where, you build around the players that look more likely to succeed. You need a contrarian play, a couple contrarian plays in your lineup that, still have upside, and any of those guys fit the bill for that.
Yeah, I know. And definitely in this spot, I think certainly one of these guys on an 11 game slate certainly could do that for you. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on to the next one?
Nope.
All right, on to the next game we go. Hit that like button for us. It's Detroit taking on Philadelphia. And yesterday, the Detroit team paid off well for both Adam and I, especially Jaden Ivey. Ivey comes in at a very favorable $4,800. $5,700 over there on FanDuel, while Bojan Bogdanovic is 65 and 61 on DraftKings and FanDuel, respectively. Ivy still $18 on Yahoo, and Bogdanovic only 22 over there on Yahoo. Looks like a solid option over there. But this team not getting much ownership right now based on our ownership projections. I do think this team will get some ownership by the time lock comes around. I think there are some solid options to take some chances on. That being Ivy yet again, Jalen Duren, $4,700. If he can manage to stay out of foul trouble against an Embiid matchup, certainly take some chances there. He's the first, I think, teenager since Dwight Howard to rack up 11 plus rebounds in, I think, 7 straight games in a row. It's pretty impressive what Duren's been doing at a young age. He might be the youngest player in the league right now. I definitely like taking some chances at Duren at that DraftKings price tag. Not so much on FanDuel where you can only play one center. But the most important question is, can we go back to Jaden Ivey in full confidence and get aggressively above the field yet again tonight?
I don't think full confidence is the phrase I would use, but you can go back there. I think he's still certainly underpriced. He's the only guy on DraftKings right now pulling double-digit ownership, and I think that makes sense. 4,800 for someone that should play 27 or 28 minutes. There is plenty of blowout risk here with Detroit being 12-point dogs on the road against Philly, but at the same time, we've seen Philly do a very good job this year of blowing a lot of massive leads with their second unit. So it's not crazy to think that even if this does end up being a double-digit deficit or double-digit, final, that Detroit could hang well enough that you get full run. We also have a questionable Killian Hayes. That has the potential to bump Jaden Ivey. I'm not sure which route the Pistons will go if Hayes is out. I think it's likely they'll just add Amadou Diallo to the rotation and still run a 10-man rotation, but You could still get a couple extra minutes from Ivy. You could see additional assists as well if he's not out there with Killian Hayes. So that has the potential to make him look a little bit better. I think he's a good option at 4,800. There's a lot of guys that I think look pretty similar to him. And then Jalen Duren's the only other guy on DraftKings that I really would have interest in. 4,700, rebounding at a really high rate. If he avoids foul trouble, you're getting 28 plus minutes from him. That is a big if in this spot against Joel Embiid. Clearly, it's a very, very risky spot for him. But if he's able to stay out there, he is still a little bit underpriced. There are a ton of center options today, though. So 2% ownership is appealing in tournaments, but also I had 60% of him yesterday. I wouldn't expect to get anywhere remotely close to that today.
Yeah, it's a completely different situation, right? 11 game slate. Feel free to take some chances on this Detroit team and keep an eye on that new situation there. And obviously, I think yesterday you touched on how everyone has kind of a direct backup there, and it's makes things a little bit tricky where Dwayne Casey might write the hot hand, and that might burn us for DFS purposes. But I think with that, it also gives us the opportunity to take more risks and get rewarded. Any chance that you'd be willing to take a chance on any of these backup guys? That being Alec Burks, who certainly that has that microwave upside within him. Sadiq Bey seems to be like it's ready to get traded type of situation. They're just trying to field the offers for him and pretty much ship him out of town as he's been coming off the bench more and more of late. But any like second unit options, it's tough to do so on an 11 game slate. Last night it seemed more viable, but how about tonight?
Yeah, I don't have any interest in it on a slate of this size especially if Killian Hayes is in. Like typically I would say Bagley's sort of interesting because you do have such massive foul risk on Jalen Duren, but Bagley's center only on DraftKings and he's 5K on FanDuel. So I don't even really want to go there. Like I can just find better centers, or if I want to go the backup center route, there's a couple that we'll get to that are $1,000 less than Bagley that you can go to. So I don't really see anything there if Hayes is in. If Hayes is out and you wanted to gamble on like Alec Burks or Sadiq Bey, I think there's a path there. Because like I said, I think the best or the most likely case is that Amadou Diallo would just slide into the rotation and take some minutes. But he's probably not taking all 28 of Killian Hayes minutes. You could see Corey Joseph start if Hayes is out. But you would have an easier path to Alec Burks playing, maybe 25 or 26 minutes instead of 22, or Sadiq Bey getting one of those games where he plays 25 or 26 minutes and then move Boyan to the 2. So you would at least get an easier path than you have right now. But that being said, still with it being an 11 game slate, I have difficulty getting to any of that.
Yeah, I know it's definitely pretty difficult to take some chances there. But onto the Philly side we go, where it's the Harden and Embiid show. They're the two-headed monster here. Harden and Embiid, 11.5 and 10K on DraftKings, 11.9 and 10.2 on FanDuel, $54 and $42 on Yahoo. I like that Yahoo price tag for Harden quite a bit, and I have no issues getting to more Harden than an Embiid tonight. I think it's a nice little savings off there when both of these guys are lead usage guys. In a Detroit spot where I do think one of them can certainly have a great game. Can two of them, if you land on both of them in your lineup, I have no issues in doing so. You're really hoping they combine for like 120 points on an 11 game slate. They certainly have that within them, but it's less likely they both can pull that off. Tobias Harris, $6,600, $7,500 on FanDuel seems a little too expensive. At $6,600 on DraftKings, sure, if you get to him, nothing that I'm too excited about. Another team that's not getting that much ownership yet again. But I like getting the above the field on guys like Harden and Embiid solely because of the upside that they have. How do you feel about Harden and Embiid and the rest of the Sixers team? It seems like the same story, different day with the Sixers team.
Yeah, pretty much. Harden and Embiid clearly look like the top two guys here. Once again, I think I'll have an easier time getting to Harden than Embiid. But they both look good. It's just that Embiid being center only on an 11 game slate, it just becomes a little bit more difficult to get there, while Harden has point guard and shooting guard eligibility. There is a ton of blowout risk here, but it's always a little bit less risky to go to the team that would be doing the blowing out, because if this game is out of hand after the third quarter, it's likely that one of Embiid or Harden was just playing out of their mind for 3/4. And if this game goes down to the wire, you're likely getting 38, 39 minutes from Harden, 36, 37 from Embiid, both in, good matchups here. So at very low ownership right now, I do like getting to both guys. Again, I think it'll be a little bit easier to get to Harden. Harris and Melton are both at price points on DraftKings where I could see them as a last piece in. They are on a team with a 118 total. Neither one projects all that well when they're playing with Joel Embiid and James Harden, but they should get mid-30s in minutes if this game is relatively competitive. But I also think those are two guys that sort of just fall off as you start getting guys ruled out between now and lock, which is definitely going to happen. So I think that as we get more news, it's probably going to get easier and easier to get to somebody like Harden, and then more difficult actually to get to guys like Harris and Melton.
Yeah, I think that's a solid breakdown for that Philly team. 223 total, not the greatest on the slate, but Detroit matchup on the other side. I do think maybe a surprise Philly player could certainly pay off. Low owned team, another team that you can definitely take some shots on tournaments, and it won't take much to get above the field on. Everyone hit that like button. Let's talk about BetMGM. We have a very exclusive limited time offer with this BetMGM deal for exclusively the holidays. And I recommend if you guys have BetMGM available in your state, make sure to take advantage of that because it's gonna go away from you guys really soon. And in the situation like this, you should be pouncing on these no-brainer deals, in my opinion. So do not miss out on this whatsoever. So take advantage of this BetMGM deal that we have going. And also, you can find that link in the description over there. All you got to do is, it's only available for this week, last I check. And all you got to do is, it takes a minute or two to sign up, deposit $10 or more, make a bet. And there you go. There you have it. We have so many tools on the site that you can take advantage of to make that bet for you. And then also, you can get that Stokastic Plus membership as well if you make that deposit through BetMGM. Take advantage of that link in description, and producer Jordan will be dropping that in the chat if you guys are looking for that link right now. Thank you, producer Jordan. On to the next game we go. Toronto taking on the Knicks. The Knicks are the hottest team in the NBA as they've won 8 in a row. Toronto is 1.5 point underdogs at Madison Square Garden tonight. Toronto team is going to have Gary Trent Jr. questionable, and that's significant because he's one of the main staples of that Toronto rotation where a ton of minutes are usually played by him. And that's going to mean a ton of minutes for the rest of the team, in my opinion. That being Siakam, Van Vliet, Barnes, and OG. They're expensive, 10-4, 8-3, 7-3, and 7-1 over there on DraftKings for those guys respectively. Priced a bit more favorably over there on FanDuel as no one is above 10K, but Van Vliet is all the way up to $9,700 there. That is the most expensive I've seen Fred Van Vliet ever over there on FanDuel. While you can definitely take your chances on OG and Scotty Barnes, 7,500 and 7,700. Well, Siakam looks outstanding over there on FanDuel. This team is always going to be appealing because of the minutes they play. But right now, the field doesn't really want to play them based on our ownership projections yet again. No real chalk here, very limited ownership. But I do think there is merit taking some chances on this Toronto Raptors team because of the condensed rotation at times and the elevated minutes that they play compared to the rest of the teams on the slate. Thanks to Nick Nurse, I'm always going to have interest in Siakam just because of the minutes, the usage, and the ability to put up a number that matters even at this price tag. He's probably my favorite Raptor to go to. While I'll be willing to take some chances on Van Vliet at 8,300 on DraftKings, but maybe that's it. Scotty Barnes is not the guy who I'm always excited to go to when majority of these guys are healthy. Talk about the Trent Jr. questionable situation and this rest of this Raptors team.
Yeah, so the Trent Jr. question, I don't think has really any impact at all on the main 4 guys here, Barnes, Van Vliet, Siakam, and OG. They're going to get theirs regardless. Trent's not a high usage guy, and those minutes are going to be there, and no matter what. But if Trent is out, you do get at least some guys that you could gamble on if you want to. Juancho Hernan-Gomez started the first half last game. Then they went to Khem Birch in the second half. That was against Joel Embiid. I think it's less likely here that they get away from Siakam at center. But Hernan-Gomez also not a great point per minute guy. He wouldn't be a great option either, but you also would be able to, if you wanted to, take some shots, hope for the best on Chris Boucher, who's gotten a little bit more expensive. Malachi Flynn still sitting at 3,200. Flynn last game played a bunch of minutes in the first half, played about 13, 14 minutes in the first half, followed that up by playing 4.5 in the second half. So clearly would be a very risky option. But if Gary Trent's in, I don't think you can really roll the dice on any of those guys. If he's out, they're still unlikely to succeed, but they are at least guys where it's not the craziest thing in the world if they do. I think that's the real impact that Trent has at 5,900. I'm not really interested in him even if he plays. I would expect him to play around 32 to 34 minutes. I'm with you on Siakam and Van Vliet being the guys I'm most interested in here. Siakam just plays huge minutes night in and night out, played 43 minutes in regulation last game. I always have difficulty with projecting him because I never just want to go to 40 minutes on somebody, but at the same time, if the game's competitive, the guy's playing 40 minutes. And he's a really, really good point per minute guy, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Van Vliet so far this year. So him getting 1% ownership is really interesting, even though he is expensive. Greg and I were talking about it this morning. He's probably one of the best players in the NBA that nobody really talks about as being a really, really good player. And I think that kind of translates to DFS as well. You know, when you get his price tag down around like 9K, everybody realizes it and jams him in. But when he gets up above 10K, I think there's a tendency to kind of just be like, oh, I'm not paying that for Siakam. When if the game's close, he's playing 40 minutes and getting 1.3 fantasy points per minute. The guy can certainly go get you 55, 60 DraftKings points, and he's completely unowned. So I do like him in tournaments. Van Vliet would be the second guy for me on DraftKings at 8,300. I do think he's a step behind Siakam, and I'm with you on FanDuel. There's just basically no way that you're paying 9,700 for Van Vliet with Siakam in.
Yeah, no, that makes things awfully difficult there. It's a Knicks matchup on the other side, which I certainly think could work out well for some of these guys on this Toronto team just because of the minutes they play. But onto the Knicks side we go. Hit that like button for us as we are moving along this 11-game slate. The hottest team in the league. It's weird. It feels weird to say they won 8 in a row, and all the Knicks fans are believing yet again, but they'll be burned yet again in the playoffs if they make it that far. But Julius Randle, 9,200 on both sites. I don't have that much interest in him yet tonight at all, but $38 on Yahoo, sure. It's a tough spot for me to go to Randall just because I feel like priced appropriately now. I know Obi Toppin remains out, and Tibbs is going to play him a lot of minutes. I just don't. I'm just like my personal bias is coming in here, which I probably shouldn't let happen. But it's Julius Randle at $9,200, Jalen Brunson $7,200. I prefer going to Brunson if I were to play a Nick. And so does the field. He comes in with some significant ownership. Finally, a guy projected north of 20%. Another guy over there on DraftKings is $5,100, Mitchell Robinson, who's been impressive of late, and he's been pretty solid. $6,300 on FanDuel. Seems a little difficult. Obviously, he can rack up blocks in a hurry. Another guy who's getting ownership on FanDuel is Quickly, which is very interesting to see. He comes in sub 5K on both sites. It's a Knicks team that's getting some ownership, but I might be willing to look elsewhere. How do you feel about this Knicks team tonight? I'm shocked to see this ownership right now. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense to you than it does to me.
So starting with the guys that I am confident what the rotation is going to look like, the ownership coming in the Brunson and Robinson both make sense to me. I think they're both in situations where they're going a little bit over-owned if you just look at optimal percentage versus ownership, because there are plenty of good point guard options. There's plenty of good center options, but Robinson's $5,100. He's playing around or averaging around 29 minutes per game over his last 10, but you can get a lot more than that. He played 29 minutes last game without even stepping on the floor in the fourth quarter. If this game's competitive and Robinson avoids foul trouble, you could easily get him north of 30 minutes, and he's basically a fantasy point per minute guy. You're just talking about someone that's going to project right around 6x and has plenty of volatility in his game as well because of the block upside. So the ownership makes sense there. And then Jalen Brunson has been playing a little bit more since they removed Derrick Rose from the rotation. And if this game is competitive, it's likely you're getting 34, 35 minutes from him. He averages about 1.15 fantasy points per minute. So just, again, pretty easy to see why he would get a lot of ownership at that price point. As far as Barrett and Randall go, I think that they're reasonable tournament plays just because of how many minutes you can expect them to play. In competitive games, you're getting RJ Barrett's similar to Pascal Siakam, where you're just getting like 40 plus minutes from him if the game's competitive. Julius Randle should play 37 or 38 if it's close, but the salaries have adjusted a bit. You have Barrett pushing 7K now. You have Randle up over 9K. So they're lower owned, and I think that they should be, but they are still good contrarian options. The part where I think it gets really, really interesting is Quentin Grimes is doubtful to play today. I'm not exactly sure what that means because there's a couple ways this rotation could go. But right now, we don't have much ownership going to Emmanuel Quickly. He's getting 8%. We have 2% going to Miles McBride, and we have none going to Cam Reddish. I don't know how the rotation is going to go, but I'm pretty sure it has to go in a way that's good for one of those guys. My guess is that Miles McBride moves into the starting lineup. If that's the case, he's 3,200 and probably playing 30 minutes. He would look like a good value. You could have Cam Reddish start. That's probably the least appealing fantasy option because I think there's a good chance that if he started, you would still get either McBride or Quickly closing over him. But prior to Quentin Grimes joining the starting lineup, Cam Reddish was starting and playing 38 minutes a game. So there's a non-zero chance if Reddish starts that you just get starter minutes. Tibbs just kind of turns into a robot and plays his starters 36 minutes no matter what their name is. So there's a chance you would get that. And then I think probably the least likely is that Quickly starts at 4,500. you would just project him for a bunch of minutes and he would look really good. But one way or the other, I think there is the potential for him to get more minutes off the bench, because if McBride starts, I think that it's basically either Quickly or McBride in the closing lineup. So maybe you could get 22 minutes from Quickly, but there's also that path to 26 to 28. Same goes for Reddish. If Reddish starts, it basically turns into it's going to be one of these three in the closing lineup. So it's a little bit riskier going to Quickly. But if Quickly or McBride start, I think that you're probably going to get either Reddish or Rose as the last guy into the rotation, playing like 14 to 16 minutes. But the bulk of the minutes, if one of McBride or Quickly start, I think is going to Quickly and McBride.
Yeah, I definitely think it's an interesting situation. As gross as it sounds, my guess would be probably Cam Reddish would start. I don't know if Miles McBride would. He's kind of tiny of a player, I think. I don't think I think he might be a little undersized in this matchup, but I'm not too sure on what that's going to happen either. But it's going to be appealing whoever does start, with Grimes playing a ton of minutes and what Thibodeau's tendencies usually are. It's a thing that I think Live Before Lock might get that starting lineup, and they should be able to break down for us. But let's keep on moving onto the
For what it's worth, McBride's only 6'1", but 6'9" wingspan.
6'9" wingspan. Okay, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what Thibodeau ends up doing. It'll be definitely interesting to see what happens with that situation there. Now,
yeah, and I think Reddish is a very likely candidate to start for the reasons you were saying. I'm just not exactly sure how deep in Tibbs' doghouse he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's demanded a trade like 3 different times in New York, and no one wants him, and the Knicks can't trade him. And it's super bizarre. Like, they paid Fournier $92 million to chill in New York. I mean, that sounds like a great gig.
I forgot he was even on this team, to be honest.
Yeah, so very questionable situation, questionable tendencies for this Knicks team. Hell, it might be Svi Mikhailiuk who starts. Who knows? So we'll keep an eye on what ends up happening there in that Knicks situation. But Indiana and Boston, we go. Indiana takes on this Boston team. Indiana, I believe, is major dogs. I think they're 10-point underdogs at Boston with a 233 total. And on the Indiana side of things, it's going to be Tyrese Halliburton. He's kind of their lead dog, 9.6 and 9.5. Just, I think, appropriate for Halliburton. $40 on Yahoo seems like a more reasonable chance to take some chances on him. Then it's Miles Turner. And like another team here, not getting much ownership here in a Boston spot. Just maybe some solid tournament options, obviously, with Halliburton and Turner. But Buddy Hield, 3-point bonus at $6,200 in DraftKings. You need a lot of open threes and a lot of random stuff to go your way for him to pay off that price tag. And everyone else doesn't seem that appealing to me at all. This Pacers team is, even with Halliburton, doesn't seem that great to me. I think the field with the projected ownership maybe has it right now. Maybe barring any unforeseen injury news, I can't go to this Pacers team in any confidence. Some Halliburton and some Turner in tournaments. It won't take much for me to get above the field. I like Turner on FanDuel at that 7.3 price tag, but that's really about it. How do you feel about this Pacers team?
The same. Brutal matchup going up against Boston in Boston. Clearly, you get a very high ceiling from guys like Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton at no ownership. So they're fine in tournaments, but like there's just going to be a lot of low-owned, high upside guys that we can get to. So it's not like they're really even special in that regard. One rotation change that we did see last game, and who knows if it sticks, but if it does, it's mildly interesting. We saw Isaiah Jackson move back into the backup center role ahead of Jalen Smith. So he played every minute that Miles Turner was not on the floor last game. Jalen Smith ended up only playing about 10 minutes. So 3,100, power forward and center eligible. If you get 17 minutes from Isaiah Jackson, could be good, but also I think you're just very likely to get enough value opening up between now and lock that just becomes an afterthought. Like right now, if everybody questionable were ruled in, then I'd be kind of interested. But assuming a lot of those guys get ruled out, I probably won't get there. But yeah, Turner and Halliburton both obviously fine, but I think pretty much correctly priced here in a really difficult matchup.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot. I mean, site-specific plays really don't even matter here, just because I don't think maybe $26 on Yahoo for Turner over there. But take some tournament options. If you want to make an argument based on ownership, sure. But even then, I'd be willing to look elsewhere on this. There's 21 other teams. I think so many other better options. On the Boston side of things, I think definitely here I have some more interest, and that being Jason Tatum, 11K and 10.8. I like taking some chances on Tatum in an Indiana matchup, as I do Jaylen Brown, $9,400 and $8,800. That's expensive for them, but they've been pretty solid in finding ways to pay off that price tag. And in Pacer spot where I'm willing to take some chances there, maybe a little bit more than I usually am. Marcus Smart, 6,100, and I like him also because of the situation presented here. But the front court, it's been changed up. Robert Williams has returned here. Al Horford is still in the picture. Grant Williams is still in the picture. I think also the backcourt situation with Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon's getting some ownership at $5,100 on DraftKings, comes in, I believe, at $5,600 on FanDuel. Not the greatest spot. I like Tatum. I like Jaylen Brown on FanDuel for sure. The Brogdon ownership, how do you feel about that? He's getting double-digit ownership, one of the only guys right now on this team that's doing so. And the front court situation with Robert Williams returning has really muddied the situation where it's kind of ruined these guys in terms of DFS until their price corrects. I don't think they're solid plays at all. Maybe in the Pacers matchup, they can certainly pan off, but a lot of things need to go right for that to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, I still think Brogdon makes some sense. He played 31 minutes last game. That was a game without Jason Tatum. He's averaged about 24 minutes per game in the games he's played this year with Boston healthy. 2 games ago, though, still played 30 minutes, and that was a game where everybody was in. So even if you give him 24 minutes, he looks like he's correctly priced here, and there's some upside there. But if he gets 26, 28 minutes in this game, he is likely to have a big game against Indiana. You also do have a questionable Marcus Smart. If he's out, those minutes are secure for Brogdon. So I think he's fine at 10% owned. One spot that I do think is interesting, even if Smart is in, and again, like this becomes less appealing as we get more value, but right now, Derek White's only pulling 3 or 4% ownership at 3,900. He's likely to give you around 26, 27 minutes. He's not a very good point per minute guy, but neither are a lot of the guys in that price range that are getting value right now. So I do think he's interesting given the matchup and the price tag. Obviously just becomes more interesting if Marcus Smart is out. Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, I think all basically correctly priced as well. Don't mind landing on them here and there. Horford power forward eligible on DraftKings at only 4,900, I think is actually pretty appealing. He's pulling 7% ownership. One thing that stands out about the rotation since Robert Williams has come back is they're playing Horford alongside Williams quite a bit. So if they were only playing center, I would be a little bearish on Horford just because as Williams starts to play more minutes, it would necessarily mean fewer minutes for Horford. But since they are playing a lot of minutes alongside each other, we've seen about 18 minutes in each of the first couple of games for Williams. Even if, let's say, this is the game where he gets to 22 or 24 minutes, that doesn't mean Horford's coming down to 24. It means Luke Cornett's 6 minutes disappear. And so I still think you're getting, 30 to 32 minutes from Horford, who is only 4,900 and not a bad point per minute guy.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's a fair reasoning. I still think I think it's fine in tournaments maybe, but I'm hesitant. I don't feel that confident in taking some chances with Al Horford. Maybe that's more of a price tag play there, but you do bring up some solid reasons. I'm a little hesitant to go to a guy like Al Horford on this slate, but I do think those are some solid reasons for sure. Any final thoughts on this game? I do think this is an appealing tournament game for sure. To take some chances on both teams. Sorry, chances on Boston. Not so much on Indy, but on Boston. Any other guys on Boston that we should try to get to?
No, I think it's just an appealing tournament game for Boston. Like, assuming Smart is in, I think that all of Tatum, Brown, Smart, Brogdon, Horford, and Derek White are just at correct price points, but I think people are going to kind of shy away from them because they are double-digit favorites. There is plenty of blowout risk here, but if Indiana can hang in this game, it's a very, very appealing matchup for Boston, and most of these guys are low-owned. So I think it's just a team where there's not one guy here where I would expect to necessarily be jamming into a ton of lineups, but within given lineups, I think just mixing in a Boston guy is a very easy way to get a very high ceiling at modest ownership.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. Click that like button for us and that subscribe button if you're joining us, and take advantage of that no house advantage offer. And shout out to our sponsor. We have an exciting tool as well that you can take advantage of, just pretty much for like holding your hands and entering those lineups with potential overlay for you guys to take advantage of before that slate locks. Jordan, do you know the top prize tonight? Is it 10K, 5K? All right, 10 bands to first. Not so bad. Jordan will confirm that and drop a link in the chat to the tool. Oh, that's another reason why you guys should sign up and take advantage of that Christmas contest that they have later on this week. on Sunday, I believe. Wow, Christmas just is already here. Time just flies. On to Chicago and Atlanta we go. The Chicago team's in a ton of turmoil with the whole Zach LaVine saga there, as pretty much it's pretty evident that he kind of indirectly asked for a trade over this past week, as DeRozan and LaVine are not seeing eye to eye offensively, but they won the game last game out, and LaVine was pretty awesome last night. He comes in at $7,200, Vooch at $7,100, DeRozan at $8,500 in this Atlanta matchup. A team that's getting quite a bit of ownership, but I think rightfully so. I like going to LaVine again and Vooch. Yes, this team is on a back end of a back-to-back. Keep in mind that situation here. DeRozan 8,400 on FanDuel looks solid, as does LaVine, sub 7K over there at $6,900 on FanDuel. Vooch not as appealing like he is on DraftKings, but the ownership here, I do think I'm even willing to take some chances in getting above the field on this team. I know it's a back end of a back-to-back, but they're priced favorably. I like the ceiling that they bring to the table. How do you feel about Vooch? So, a guy that I'm not always excited to go to, but at that price tag, we haven't touched on many appealing guys. How do you feel about Vooch specifically? He's getting the most projected ownership over there on DraftKings.
Yeah, so Vooch, I think, is kind of similar to what I was just saying about Jalen Brunson and Mitchell Robinson when we talked about the Knicks. I think he is one of the best center plays. He is underpriced at 7,100. He's in a good spot against Atlanta. He should play 34 minutes or so, assuming a competitive game. He's averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute overall this year. Everything looks good for him. 30% ownership is probably a little bit higher than he should be. We have him with a 20% chance of being optimal. It just comes down to, what are you doing in individual lineups? Do you want to go to Vooch and then make some contrarian pivots elsewhere, or do you want to go to lower owned centers? We just talked about Miles Turner at 7K. I think that Vooch is clearly a better play than Turner. He's not 15 times better than Turner, so that's a reasonable spot. You might have Nurkic later that you can get to. You might have Gobert. There's plenty of guys that are going to at least have a similar range of outcomes to Vooch, even though Vooch's median projection is a bit higher. So I think Vooch is a good play. I think I'll probably get there quite a bit. But within individual lineups, there are some pivots you can make if you want to. Same can be said for Zach LaVine. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. So you do have a lot more flexibility with him than you do with Vooch. 7,200, should play 35, 36 minutes. He has averaged about 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this year as well. He looks really, really good. Again, there's no shortage of guys in this price range that you're going to be able to get to. But I do understand why both guys are getting a lot of ownership. They do project as two of the top plays at their respective positions.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. If Vooch comes in at this ownership, the more and more I think about it, I'd be willing to take some chances on some other centers, just because Vooch is sharing the court with DeRozan and LaVine. But like you said, it makes sense why it's coming in like this. Any chance on you taking some looks at Pat Williams, Alex Caruso, any other Bulls options? I know Caruso and Williams have been getting some ownership consistently over the past, I want to say 7 to 10 days. I'm willing to look elsewhere just because of they're kind of frenetic at those options. I think I could find some lower owned options with similar ceilings to them. How do you feel about Williams and Caruso, and wrap up the rest of this Bulls team?
So I do agree that there's lower owned options that have a similar range of outcomes because neither guy is a great point per minute guy. But I do like them more today than I have on recent slates because Chicago's low key really shorthanded here. Javonte Green not expected to play. Derrick Jones Jr. not playing. So and Goran Dragic is out. So this team has, I believe, 11 active bodies. But Malcolm Hill, if he plays, I expect it to be, a very short, 4 to 6 minute stint type thing. Same would go for Dallin Terry. Maybe he cracks the rotation, maybe he doesn't. And then Tony Bradley, I don't expect to play at all. So I do expect this to be a pretty condensed rotation. Alex Caruso is also questionable. So there's the potential for this to get even shorter. But assuming Caruso's in, instead of going to 28 minutes like I normally do for him, I'm willing to project him for 32. Instead of going around 30 on Patrick Williams, I'm going to 34. So it makes both of those guys look better than they normally do. And then looking at those bench options, Kobe White coming off of a game where he played about 24 minutes yesterday. I have him in for 26 minutes here. He's $3,400, 0.75 DraftKings points per minute this year. That's going to look like a good point per dollar option. Dosunmu only played about 6 minutes yesterday, but I have him in for about 22 here with Dragic out. He's another 0.7 to 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. He's only 3,300, so there's some merit to going there as well. And then with Jones and Green out, you should be getting all of the backup center minutes for Drummond, who is pulling 4% ownership right now. Should play 14 minutes. He's a great point per minute guy, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. So at 3,100, he's someone that probably by the time lock rolls around, you're not really interested. But again, if everybody starts getting ruled in, Drummond at 3,100 is underpriced, given that it would be very, very surprising if he does not play in this game with both Jones and Green out.
Yeah, no, keep an eye on that. It's kind of a sneaky injury situation with Caruso, because there will be some minutes that open up and get split around where we might get some sort of cheap value to help us jam in some studs on an 11-game slate. On to the Atlanta side we go. Click that like button for us. And Jordan, did you get that live subscriber count? Yeah, I asked you to do something. I was hoping you would do it. All right, no big deal. But onto the Atlanta side we go. 10-2 Trae Young, DeJounte Murray 8-6 over there. Bogdanovich remained a starter at 6-5. We saw John Collins start at the 5 last game alongside with DeAndre Hunter. Collins comes in at 5,700. Trae Young 99 on FanDuel and 9,100 from DeJounte. I like going to this Atlanta team, and Bogdanovich getting a lot of ownership over there on FanDuel. I'm not such about that play over there. I think there are some great options around him that I'm willing to take some chances. We'll see with the Vooch matchup if they continue to roll out Collins in the starting lineup. It wouldn't shock me if Kongu gets back in the starting lineup, but it's a situation to monitor here. But I really like getting above the field on these Hawks players, that being Trae, that being DeJounte, that even being John Collins, because if he were to start, I think he looks pretty solid with his potential rebound rate going up. Over there on FanDuel 6,300, I don't have any issues taking some chances with this Hawks team, taking on this Bulls matchup. I'm pretty bullish on this team today. Just also, their projected ownership is not that high the way things stand right now. Are you bullish like I am on this Hawks team?
Not as much on DraftKings. I think the pricing is pretty much correct. I am curious to see what the starting lineup looks like. I think Collins is going to start one way or the other. It's just a matter of does Okongwu start or does Bogdanovich start in this matchup. If Okongwu starts at 4,900, I do think he's a reasonable value option at center. If they start Collins at the 5, I'm expecting you get some sort of 24-24 split between him and Okongwu. Last game, Collins started but was limited to 20 minutes. I expect around 24 here. Okongwu played all of the minutes where he wasn't playing, so I think that you just see them split. But if Okongwu starts, it's likely you're getting 28 to 30 minutes from him, and he would look like a reasonable play at 4,900. Bogdanovich at 6,500 just becomes kind of difficult for me. If he's starting, the minute should be there. But the issue you run into is with DeJounte Murray back, before Murray returned, you were getting, around 32 to 34 minutes from Bogdanovich, and he was playing around 1/3 of his minutes without Trae Young or DeJounte Murray on the floor, which means that just the offense is running through Bogdanovich, who in those situations is a good basketball player and a good fantasy producer. But now with Murray back, you're going to get 0 minutes where he's playing with neither of them because they stagger Murray and Young's minutes. So if Young is off, Murray is on, and vice versa. And then a lot of Bogdanovich's minutes are just going to be with both of them, where he really has to contend with them for both usage and assist opportunities. So from a point per minute standpoint, I think he takes a pretty big hit with those guys both back. DeJounte Murray at 8,600 does look interesting to me on DraftKings. He came back from injury, and unlike Collins, he just came out there and played 37.5 minutes. We've been getting huge minutes from DeJounte Murray all season long, clearly not limited at all in his return. 8,600 is one of the cheaper price tags we've gotten on him, and he's averaged 1.14 DraftKings points per minute overall this season. You have an appealing matchup against a Chicago team that has struggled defensively recently. So at 5% ownership, I think he's going a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way as you do for DeJounte Murray. Definitely a bit overlooked there, and certainly has an upside to pay up that price tag right away. So I definitely like taking some chances with DeJounte. Any final thoughts on this game? 236.5 total. I believe the second highest on the slate the way things stand right now. But before we go on, anything you want to wrap up on this Hawks team? Would you go to Okongwu if he starts?
Yeah, I think he would be another one of those centers around 5K that looks good and similar to other ones.
Okay. All right. I definitely think that's fine going to with Okongwu as well if he were to start. On to Dallas and on to Golden State and Brooklyn we go. This Golden State team, is resting the farm again, as there will be no Andrew Wiggins, no Curry, no Clay, no Jermichael Green. So it's the Jordan Poole show and a bunch of other scrubs. If you want to take a look at like how that looks around, $8,200 for Jordan Poole, 84 over there on FanDuel. I certainly think you should take some chances on Jordan Poole.
Yeah,
And
so do I. So this game it's certainly risky. Golden State has like a 106 implied total. They're down 12 or they're 12 to 13 point dogs at Brooklyn. But if they're able to hang in this game, it basically has to be Jordan Poole. He's really the only offensive presence that they have. And without Thompson or Curry on the floor, you're talking about a mid-30s usage rate for Poole. The upside is massive. The price tag has adjusted a bit, though, so there is certainly risk to going there. This isn't the same as earlier in the year where you would get a $6,200 Jordan Poole, and it's just like he can't really fail that easily because even in 30 minutes he probably pays this off. You probably need the full 36 minutes to really be glad that you rostered Jordan Poole on this slate. So I think he's a very high upside option. I am kind of surprised he's pulling 13% ownership. I thought he would be a little bit lower owned, just given the fact that they are massive dogs on the road, and people tend to typically care about that. Like like if people aren't going to go to players from the Sixers or players from Boston because they're 10-point favorites, it kind of surprises me that that such a high percentage is willing to go to Jordan Poole as a 13-point dog. But I do get it. The upside's certainly there. 1.14 DraftKings points per minute this year without Curry and Clay. 34.2% usage rate. Also a 35.5% assist percentage. So he's going to look good. We did just get some Golden State news as well. James Wiseman is available to play, so he should be in the rotation here. I'm expecting that we get a starting lineup, and again, this is Steve Kerr, so I could easily be wrong. I'm expecting a starting lineup of Ty Jerome, Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, Draymond, and Looney. If that's the case, I expect you get around 26 minutes from Jerome. He's 3,500. He looked like a decent value. Not a great point per minute guy, but 0.77 DraftKings points per minute can certainly put him in that Kobe White range, and he's getting like less than half the ownership of White. Moses Moody at 3,300. Again, not a good point per minute guy, but he is shooting guard, small forward eligible. He's averaged about 0.7 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's likely to top 30 minutes. Looney, if they don't play games with his minutes, I think it's likely you get like 28 minutes from Looney and 20 from Wiseman. The risk is that you could certainly see this be a game where Golden State just kind of punts and Looney plays 22, Wiseman plays 22, Kuminga plays more. So he's risky, but there is, some potential there. Wiseman at 3K is going to project as a pretty good value as well. I have him in for either 16 or 18 minutes right now. Or sorry, I've been for 20 minutes right now. So he comes out to around 19 to 20 DraftKings points. Center only, which sucks, but at 3K flat, that's a reasonable value. So we will need to pay a lot of attention to the starting lineup, but there are going to be guys to get to here. Also, Jonathan Kuminga, 5K, right now pulling 37% ownership. If he starts, I think that's fine. I don't have him starting right now, and if he doesn't start, that ownership would scare the hell out of me because Steve Kerr, again, like he just runs deep rotations typically. I'm not confident that you're getting more than like 26 minutes from Kuminga if he comes off the bench. And if he plays 26 minutes, he's just not showing up in a lot of lineups here. So certainly want to pay attention to whether or not he is starting. Are you muted or are you not talking? You are muted.
I'm muted. Yeah, I'm actually muted. But it's the first time I think I've been muted for a while, but I think taking a look at the rest of this Golden State team with Kevon Looney starting, I don't think I'll have much interest in him. James Wiseman is getting some ownership, and I think I'm willing to go there tonight. Just because he's 3K and helps me get in another stud. I am sacrificing a center spot, which might be a little too much to do. So I have more interest in like the secondary Warriors guys in like Kuminga, DiVincenzo, even taking some shots on Jerome and Moody, just because to help me fill in some extra studs. I think they might come a little bit under-owned, and they're kind of blowout proof with a 12.5 point spread. We certainly saw Jordan Poole and Draymond Green certainly not play the full minutes, and we saw a bunch of blowout run happening there last night. So we'll see what ends up happening tonight. Certainly some appealing spots as there's Curry and Thompson missing, but Jordan Poole is definitely eating up majority of that. And like you said about that Kuminga ownership, it's certainly a lot. We'll see if he does start. $13 over there on Yahoo, the $4,200 price tag. on FanDuel is certainly a strong option to go over there. It's going to be an appealing Golden State spot. Keep an eye on that starting lineup. I'm not sure what he's going to do today, Steve Kerr, especially with Clay out and Curry out. I think you had a pretty projected starting lineup did definitely make sense. It wouldn't shock me if he goes completely off the radar as well, knowing Steve Kerr. On to the Brooklyn Nets game we go. It's KD at 10-5 and Kyrie at 8-8. 10-6 and 8-9 over there on FanDuel. I like the savings to Kyrie than KD today, potentially just because of like if there's a blowout, I hope I'm taking the savings and hopefully it's on the backs of Kyrie. But it's a Brooklyn Nets team that's not getting much ownership, and as weird as it sounds, I would like to get to one of these Nets, but it's going to be difficult to do so just because they're priced appropriately. I know it's a Golden State matchup where it's certainly appealing with all those guys missing, and they can certainly do the damage in 3/4 a run. But it's a tough spot to pinpoint on which one it is out of KD and Kyrie. I don't have much interest really in a guy like Ben Simmons. Certainly Nick Claxton can do some damage. He comes in at 6K on DraftKings, but a low-owned Brooklyn Nets team across the board. Do you have a preference of Brooklyn Net to get to tonight?
Ben Simmons. So Brooklyn's rotations recently have been really, really interesting. They can't keep doing what they've done the last couple of games. In each of the last 2 games, they've run an 11-man rotation in the first half. Those games were against Toronto and Detroit. They've run 11-man rotations. They've gotten down, and then in the second half, they cut 3 guys out of the rotation. They run a more condensed 8-man rotation. They come back and win. There's no way they keep running these ridiculous 11-man rotations that much longer. It could certainly happen today. I projected a 10-man rotation with like 8 minutes apiece going to Sumner and Seth Curry, but they've got to narrow this down sooner rather than later. And I'm really interested in Ben Simmons in tournaments at 2% owned because, for one, this is just a really, really appealing game where nobody on Brooklyn's getting ownership, but this team has a 120 implied total. Golden State's a fast-paced team. They are playing a bunch of G Leaguers, essentially. Like Ben Simmons can rack up defensive stats here. He should be able to get out in transition and have success. We saw him only play 25 minutes last game. Again, that was a game where you just got this really weird first half rotation that I don't buy into being an actual thing. But the game before that, he played 32 minutes. And prior to his injury, he was playing 32 plus minutes consistently overall this year in the games that he has started with all of Claxton, Irving, and Durant in. He's averaged 30 minutes, and that's including these games where he was limited and you had weird rotations. If I go to 30 minutes on Ben Simmons at 2% ownership with power forward eligibility, I think I'm going to get a good amount of him. So I like getting there. I like Claxton in tournaments as well. He's been sort of hurt by these rotations too, but he's averaged 28 minutes per game as a starter when everyone's been healthy. He's 6K on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. I like the upside that he offers. And then it goes without saying that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, if you get there, they're both going to look good.
Yeah, I think it's a solid tournament team to take some chances on in a Golden State spot. And nice point over there on Ben Simmons in that rotation for that Brooklyn Nets team. So we'll see how that pans out tonight. Click that like button for us as we move on to that next game. It's a rematch between Dallas and Minnesota. Dallas are 3.5 point favorites at Minnesota, 230 total. And last time we saw Luka Doncic just get a bogus ejection, and that's going to be really annoying to deal with. But when Dallas is on the slate, you're going to have to talk about Luka, and Luka's obviously on an 11-game slate. He can certainly find a way to get there. It's Luka Doncic. And usually when it's Doncic, I really like going to him, and I certainly will go to him tonight. But in what fashion, at what ownership, we'll see with the pending value. There's not the greatest sub 4K value to jump in multiple studs. Maybe if you build around one stud, it can certainly be Luka Doncic. But how do you feel about a guy like Christian Wood, Spencer Dinwiddie, the rest of this Dallas team? When Luka's back on the court, he just runs the show, and it's tough to go to other guys in confidence. Christian Wood's been getting more minutes of late. With the situation, I believe obviously Maxi Kleber is out, but Dwight Powell is expected to play today. Talk to me about Luka, and do you have any significant interest in another Mav outside of Luka?
So first, Kyrie Irving was just downgraded to questionable, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. That obviously would have an impact on Brooklyn. But as far as Dallas goes, yeah, I actually think they are a really interesting team here because they're really shorthanded, and it's kind of similar to Chicago, where the guys that they're missing for the most part aren't really guys you play in DFS, so it's easy not to care. But Maxi Kleber averages around 26 minutes per game. Dorian Finney-Smith is typically giving you around 30 minutes per game. They are getting Tim Hardaway back, but starting with Luka, everybody knows how to treat Luka. He's going to project as one of the highest scorers on the slate. He's a little bit easier to get to on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think there's going to be enough value to get there. It's just still that you have such a strong 8 to 10K range at guard that I'm going to really like going there and saving some money and upgrading my lineup elsewhere. But if you do get to Luka in lineups, that's obviously great. He's in a good spot. He's really, really good, goes without saying. Where I'm really interested here is Spencer Dinwiddie at 6,400 on DraftKings, point guard, shooting guard eligible, 4% owned. I think you're getting around 34 minutes if this game's competitive. He played 17 minutes in the first half last game. You can't read into what he did in the second half because he subbed back in for Luka once he got ejected. But I think you're likely to get around 34 minutes from him. In the games that he's played with Luka this year, he's averaged 0.98 DraftKings points per minute in 32 minutes per game. So I think you're getting a couple more minutes. That's coming pretty close to a 6x projection on a guy that's 4% owned. So I like Dinwiddie here. He's another spot where if this ownership holds, I expect to be getting over the field on him. Christian Wood's salary has come up to where I think he's difficult to get to. Still, still has a ceiling. But with Powell back and Powell expected to play, I have Wood in for 32 minutes. They have played alongside each other some this year, and you certainly could see some of that here. And so maybe, Wood does get up to like 34, 36 minutes, but at 8,100, it's just kind of tough to get there. But really interested in Dinwiddie. Love getting to Luka if I can. Tim Hardaway Jr. probably plays a couple extra minutes as well at 5,300. He doesn't look quite as good to me as Dinwiddie does, though.
Yeah, no, I think those are some solid points on the Mavs team. We'll see what the ownership comes in at. I do think maybe some of those guys might come in a little bit under-owned than they should be. But taking on this Minnesota team continues to deal with some questionable guys, that being Gobert, and I think Kyle Anderson's also still questionable. And that's another news piece that we're going to have to deal with, because when Gobert is out, Naz Reid has been the immediate insertion in our lineups. We'll see with this price tag obviously going up. I've been fortunate enough to ride this Anthony Edwards wave, and I'll continue to do so tonight. I still have interest in D'Angelo Russell, and if Gobert to play, I'll still like going to Gobert. It's a Minnesota team, obviously, with the injury news that we've been dealing with the last couple of times that they've been on the slate. It makes things a little tricky when we're building lineups. How do we approach the situation tonight?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get the Gobert news sooner rather than later, because even at the elevated price tag for Naz Reid, he's going to look like a good mid-range center option at 5,900. He's been playing huge minutes in the games where he doesn't get hurt. Played 36 and then 40. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. You've got a favorable matchup here against this Dallas front court that's going to struggle defensively without Maxey. So I really like getting to Naz Reid still if Gobert is out. If Gobert is in, I'm expecting around 32, 33 minutes from Gobert. He would be another reasonable pivot away from somebody like Vooch, where I think Vooch projects better and is the better option, but Gobert does still have a high enough ceiling where he'd be an interesting tournament play. So really, really big news there. Kyle Anderson news is a little bit less important because a lot of the minutes, if he misses, are going to go to Austin Rivers, who just isn't a very good fantasy option. Played 35 minutes last game, but you would potentially get a little bit more playing time for Jalen Noel. You should get more minutes for Jaden McDaniels. I think he gets a nice bump if Kyle Anderson is out. And then also, Edwards is more efficient if Rudy Gobert doesn't play. The spacing's better without Gobert. So it's a little bit of a bump for Edwards. He should play 37 minutes one way or the other. He's a high upside option, even if Gobert's in. He's just going to look a little bit better if he's out. And then D'Angelo Russell, still no Jordan McLaughlin. So Russell should play 34, 35 minutes here at 7,500.
Yeah, no, I think that's a situation to keep an eye on here, especially with that news. I do think it's one of the more important news points on the slate outside of now the Kyrie Irving situation. Obviously, you talked on how he was ruled questionable. That'll certainly change the whole projection on that Brooklyn team as he soaks up so much usage and minutes. And I'm sure Live Before Lock will touch on that situation leading up to lock. Click that like button for us. We're on to the next game. It's a Portland and Oklahoma City game where Portland absolutely laid the egg in the last few seconds of the game and blew this game away as Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard did not get on the same page on the inbound pass, where they just turned the ball over and then SGA won it on a game winner. And it was really unfortunate to witness that happen. But let's go ahead and talk about this Portland team. It's taken on this OKC team yet again. Yusuf Nurkic still remains questionable. Last time we saw Drew Eubanks start, and he was fine at a pretty high ownership, one of the highest owned guys on the slate. I like going back to Dame. I like going back to Anthony Simons, and the rest of the guys kind of like solid tournament options, in my opinion. Nothing that I'm too excited to get above the field on. But if Nurkic is out, I like taking some chances on Eubanks yet again on this 11 game slate. Yes, the opportunity cost on center position on DraftKings might be a little too much, but on FanDuel, you certainly can take your chances there. But I like going to Dame yet again above the field. And Anthony Simons, probably 1A and 1B in my interest, then Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart. But if Nurkic plays, I think he's a solid tournament option on the center slate. Outside of Embiid, there aren't that many super studs on this slate, so it makes sense to take some chances on with Nurkic against this OKC team.
Yeah, I like $6,800 Nurkic if he goes. And I'm on the same page with you on Eubanks, where at 4,200 on DraftKings, he's a good point per dollar option, but the opportunity cost is really high, and I'm sure he would get some ownership. So I might look to go elsewhere, but I would probably play it pretty similarly to how I did last slate when he was 3,300. He was like 15% owned on DraftKings. I ended up getting around 7%, but then I had like 92% on FanDuel because he had power forward eligibility as well. So he was really easy to get to. So I think it's a situation where he's just going to look a lot better on FanDuel if he gets the start. But Nurkic looks good if he's in. Grant, Hart, Lillard, Simons, I think are all, this is another team where nobody's getting double-digit ownership, and I understand why. You know, you can kind of name anybody you name on the Blazers, you can name other plays that project a little bit better at their price tag and or position, but you still have a massive ceiling on somebody like Damian Lillard at 10-6. It's kind of similar to Pascal Siakam, where it's not the best, you know, median projection, but it doesn't surprise anybody if Dame Lillard just comes out there, knocks down 8 threes and drops 65 DraftKings points. Like, you see him do this for weeks at a time every season. So you know it's there, and he's been playing bigger minutes. Simons at 7,300 should play around 35 minutes. Certainly hurt by Lillard's presence, but still about a fantasy point per minute guy. Same goes for Jeremy Grant. So I think this is another just appealing team in tournaments. We did also just get Quentin Grimes as a game time decision. He's been doubtful all day, so I kind of take that as an upgrade, but I don't know. I think his officials.
The Grimes situation is pretty interesting. I was watching that game. So Grimes rolled an ankle on a 3-point attempt, I believe, by Ty Jerome. He rolled his ankle there, and he ended up continuing to play out and finish the game out, which was really interesting to see. I was shocked that he was ruled doubtful. Obviously, swelling could have happened overnight. But now with him being a game time decision, it feels like he's more closer to playing than not, but we'll see what that starting lineup looks like.
Yeah, so to me, it's kind of like game time decision doesn't always mean anything. Like, it's just coach speak. He's still doubtful on the injury report that came out 18 minutes ago. So I'm interested to see what his status is at the next injury report, because I don't know if game time decision actually means game time decision or if it was just a throwaway line. But I do think, you know, what you said, it's not hard to envision that this is a situation where, you know, he rolled his ankle in the first half. He came back, played the second half. It swelled. And then as today went on, it was just like, oh, this actually isn't bad. And now he's out there running around on the floor and he's like, yeah, I might be able to go. Like, that's not difficult to envision that being the case.
Definitely. And any other thoughts on this Portland team? Willing to take some chances, like on a Watford if Nurkic is out, or Justice Winslow, I know soaked up some minutes there. Any interest in taking some options on the secondary/tertiary pieces? I know 11 game slate, but it's difficult.
If I did with Nurkic out, it would be Winslow at 3,500. He's small forward, power forward, and there is a path to him getting closing minutes. You know, last game you saw the 32 minutes from Eubanks and he closed, but it's not crazy to think, you know, that you could get that small lineup that we've seen Portland go to in the past against an OKC team that is also not very big. So if you had to gamble on one of these guys, I think it's Winslow, but I also think you're just going to get enough value that you don't really need to.
On to the OKC side we go. Click that like button. But before we talk about OKC, we got an exciting 3-day free trial offer for you guys to take advantage of. We have exciting tools, especially the new lineup generator. It's kind of enhanced the whole lineup building game for your tournament lineups. Feel free to take advantage of that, where it's kind of like, it's an experience where you can save lineups, build lineups based on what you want. And it's based on a bunch of data and tool simulations that they put in a bunch of hours nightly, daily, essentially up until lock, to help you put out the best lineups in tournaments. So take advantage of that Stokastic 3-day trial before it's gone. I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the year we stop doing this 3-day trial, but we'll see. But might as well take advantage of when it's here. So onto the OKC side we go. And this OKC team is going to be looking a lot different today than it did the other time they played this Portland team. As Josh Giddey's expected to return, SGA still looks like a solid option But with Giddey returning, it just takes away quite a bit. I know it's just one guy, but he's a guy who's going to play 33 minutes in a Mark Dagnall rotation, which is really significant because outside of Lou Dort, I can't rely on minutes, what they're going to look like. Also, additionally, Darius Bazley's supposed to return as well. And he's been playing a lot more minutes of late than he was earlier in the season. But it's always tough to pinpoint what's going to happen outside of those big three, SGA, Giddey, and Dort. Jalen Williams seems to earn the trust and confidence of the coach. So he's been getting some more additional run, but tough to go to him also just because when Giddey back, less potential usage, less assist opportunities. So it's really just SGA and Giddey for me, not even getting that much interest in Lou Dort. How do you feel about this OKC team? Always a tough team for DFS outside of SGA.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. First of all, keep an eye on the starting lineup. My guess is, and guess is the key word there, is Giddey, SGA, Dort, Jalen Williams, and Poku. If that's the case, and you want to roll the dice on Pokusevski, fine. He's 4,600, but he's probably going to play like 22 to 24 minutes. This team has a lot of bodies healthy now. If that's the case, I really like SGA still. He does take a step back with Josh Giddey, but he still averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute in 24 games with Giddey active this year. So you got a reduction in ownership for SGA, and to me, that just offsets the lack of, or not even lack of, the drop in production. So, he's in this price range with Siakam. He's in there with Trae Young. He's in there with Lillard. I think I like SGA the most out of that group. He is also the least expensive by a little bit. So they're all similar, very high upside, relatively low on plays, but really like SGA. Giddey looks okay. He's likely to give you 32, 33 minutes. He's 6,900, pulling about 7% ownership. So that makes sense. Outside of that, I don't really feel comfortable with anything else. Pokusevski, Jalen Williams getting 5% ownership, Dort getting 3. They're both at price points where if you're playing 150 lineups and they land in one, then or 2 or 3, then fine. But if you're playing single entry or 3 max, I wouldn't worry about those guys. The one potential lineup change that I am keeping an eye out for is if Darius Bazley moves back into the starting lineup, because prior to his illness, he was starting ahead of Pokusevski with Jeremiah Robinson Earl out, and he was actually playing big minutes at 3,600 with power forward eligibility. If Darius Bazley starts this game, even if you just give him 24 or 26 minutes as a projection, he's going to look like a good value option. Whereas if he's coming off the bench and you go 20 to 22, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get there. Although he is still playable at no ownership, but you're certainly not going to be as confident in his minutes as if he's starting.
Yeah, no, it's a situation to keep an eye on that starting lineup. Now, if basically were to start, should we be making like a priority value option?
I think so. The caveat being that they do still have a lot of bodies. You still have Omaruri up. You still have Muscala active. You still have Kenrich Williams. You still have Poku. So there's still a lot of ways for Mark Dagnall to start Bazley and then still screw you on his minutes. But it would at least signify that Bazley is stepping on the floor first. And, that is typically enough to at least give somebody a couple of more minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that's a situation to keep an eye on. Click that like button for us, and we're going to move on to the Orlando and Houston matchup, 223.5 total. The Magic are 1.5 point favorites. Outside of the Knicks, they are the second hottest team in the league, I believe, and they've won 6 or 7 in a row. And they're kind of like they've been vocal about how they were disrespected by Eddie House's comments. I don't know if you saw them. I know producer Jordan saw them, right? You want to tell the audience what he said? No, it was, I guess, not safe for work environment language, but they're definitely been motivated by that speak, and they've won some impressive games of late. And I think it's a lot to do with Markelle Fultz being back in their rotation, as he's showing why he was kind of maybe a top 3 pick. The number 1 overall pick for the Sixers back in the day. But with Fultz being back, we do have an interesting situation here where I believe Franz Wagner is questionable, and I do think that's an interesting situation to keep an eye on. Paolo Banchero, certainly a great option in this Houston matchup, and Markelle Fultz as well. But everyone else kind of feels priced appropriately. I know it's a Houston spot where certainly 2 or 3 of these guys could pay off, but I'm just going to rely on Markelle Fultz and Banchero, their usage and their minutes. Franz Wagner is such a very steady play. I can count on him to get me low 30s. Maybe mid 30s, but nothing more than 40 or 45, where at his price tag, sometimes that's kind of what you want, that ceiling, that's what you want from him. And it's tough to get there when he's sharing the court with Banchero and Fultz now. And Mo Wagner, I think you can take a chance with him on in a Houston spot, but not the greatest option. I think there are better center plays than him. But Fultz and Banchero, I certainly like going to. How do you feel about Fultz and Banchero and the rest of this Magic team?
Yeah, I like them both as well, and I think they do both look at least a little bit better if Paolo Banchero is, or not if Paolo Banchero, if Franz Wagner is out. I'm not sure who would replace Wagner in the starting lineup. If it's Cole Anthony, then I don't think it's really much of a change for Banchero and Fultz because Anthony's a high usage guy that play makes as well. But if they were to throw like a Kevon Harris in there as a placeholder, or even a Terrence Ross, who's not a high usage guy anymore, then you would likely see increased production for both Fultz and Banchero. Without Wagner on the floor this year, 1.2 DraftKings points per minute for Banchero. Fultz has only played 98 minutes without him. He's at about a fantasy point per minute, but depending on who they replace him with, you could get a bump. But even if we assume Wagner is in, 5,700 for Fultz looks good. We saw that stretch where he was, for one reason or another, just not playing 30 minutes because he was getting hurt, getting in foul trouble. They were getting blown out. But you're getting 30 to 32 minutes typically if he avoids all of those things. He's only 5,700. You have what should be a fast-paced, fantasy-friendly game against Houston. So he's pulling 20% ownership. It's another spot where probably a little bit high in terms of optimal percentage, but you're not even like trying to build the actual optimal lineup because you're never going to do it. So somebody being, quote unquote, over-owned doesn't mean they're a bad play. It just means need to be different somewhere else in your lineup. Fultz is still going to look like a good option at 5,700. Banchero at 8K, only getting 6% ownership seems really interesting. And Mo Wagner, he is center only on DraftKings now, which is problematic. If he had power forward eligibility, I'd certainly be interested. He's playing around 29 minutes in his starts. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy in a good matchup, but the opportunity cost makes it really difficult to get there. If Franz Wagner ends up being out, regardless of who starts, I do think that you're likely to see a little bit more playing time for Cole Anthony, who at 5K has a path to being good anyway. There's a lot of games where he's playing 20 to 22 minutes, and that's not quite enough. But here and there, you do get, some, especially if something like happens with Fultz ahead of him or happens with Wagner from foul trouble or injury or whatever it may be. Any game where you get 26 to 28 minutes from Cole Anthony at 5K, he's likely to give you a game that you're happy with.
Yeah, and I certainly think in a Houston spot, there are a couple pathways he can pay that off. I have no issues taking some chances with him, especially in a large field tournaments. I think there's an upside for Cole Anthony against Houston. Click that like button, and we're going to go on to Houston. And last time, this Houston team was very disappointing. I was super disappointed as they got waxed by the Spurs team. And Houston is KPJ and Jalen Green, 7-1 and 7-2. And Jalen Green is now more expensive than Kevin Porter Jr. on DraftKings, while they're the same price on FanDuel. And KPJ is more expensive than Jalen Green on Yahoo. Both of these guys have interest in tournaments. I think they're obviously the sure usage going their way. And I also have interest in Alfred and Şengün on both sides. Honestly, it's 57 and 6,400. I like getting above the field on this team. Surprisingly, Tari Eason is getting some ownership here as well. He's getting quite a bit, north of 20%. I know Eason has shown the ability to be a good fantasy player, but on an 11-game slate, I think it's fine to look elsewhere. I know the minutes could be 20, and if there's foul trouble, could be in the mid-20s. The Eason ownership, I want to look elsewhere. While I want to get above the field on guys like Şengün, Green, and Porter Jr. No issues getting above the field on Jabari Smith Jr., a favorable $5,200 price tag on DraftKings. Houston situation, how do you perceive that Tari Eason? Significant ownership, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was really hoping he'd be low owned today because he's the kind of guy that I would have really liked to take a shot on there. He played alongside Jabari Smith a bit in the second half last game, and that's something that we hadn't been seeing. If you're going to see that rotation from Houston going forward, where Bruno Fernando plays less and Tari Eason steps into some of the backup center minutes, he's going to be underpriced at 3,400. The issue is that's the only time we've seen it. Other than that, first half of that game, both halves of the previous game, pretty much every other game, he's just been the straight backup to Jabari Smith. So there's no guarantee you're getting those 20 minutes from Eason. I would like to roll the dice there if he wasn't getting ownership, but since he is, I think he's, okay, but I don't think it's nearly the same sort of upside because there is still that risk that comes with it. But Porter, Şengün, Green all make sense to me. I'm surprised that Green's getting less ownership than Porter just because they're basically the same play. I would think that they'd be about the same ownership, but all three of those guys look good. And Jabari Smith at 5,200, I think looks fine in tournaments as well. He has been playing better recently, and that has translated into more playing time.
Yeah, I think Jabari Smith Jr. is certainly an option. Not as appealing on FanDuel at that $5,900 price tag, but this Houston-Orlando matchup, do you think it's a great game environment for a couple guys to find a way to pay this off. I think taking a look around elsewhere, any consideration for Eric Gordon? I know it's gross, but he's certainly at that price tag at $3,500. As gross as it sounds, he's kind of like a Tari Eason pivot.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a good point per minute guy. He should play around 30 minutes at no ownership. Sure, fine, but certainly not anything I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult situation there. I'm just looking for reasons not to play Eason at that ownership, but we'll see what ends up happening with that Houston situation. On to the next game we go, and it's an appealing game. It's the Lakers taking on the Sacramento Kings. And this Lakers team, it's going to be without Russell Westbrook yet again, but LeBron James is going to return, and we all know Anthony Davis remains out. And it's got to be LeBron James, man. He's got to be one of my favorite plays on the slate tonight just because of the situation presented. No Russ Westbrook means I feel more confident in going to a guy like Dennis Schroeder. Even taking some chances on Lonnie Walker makes some sense. But Thomas Bryant continues to play a ton of minutes and plays well when he's getting these minutes. He's a good fantasy producer when given the minutes. If he can stay out of foul trouble, I like Bryant as well. A Lakers team, probably one of my favorite spots to target because of the guys missing and the available minutes and usage there on the table for obviously LeBron James. I like going to LeBron James, even at this price tag has gone up. But how do you feel about LeBron tonight? I do think he's a solid option on both sides.
Looks fantastic. No Westbrook, no James, or no Westbrook, no Davis. LeBron clearly looks like a priority. $9,900, small forward, power forward eligible, easy to get to. Thomas Bryant looks good as well. Should play 28 to 30 minutes. Could play a little bit more, but you do have Wenyen Gabriel and Damian Jones backing him up now. But 58 or 5,300, another center that's pulling a lot of ownership and should, but also probably a spot where in an individual lineup you can pivot away. Dennis Schroeder at 4,700. James going to cut into his rates, but you should get a lot of playing time there. Kendrick Nunn at 3K if you really want to gamble with Westbrook and Reeves not playing. But Bryant and James clearly the priorities here.
Yeah, I think completely agree with you there on the LeBron situation and Thomas Bryant happening there. And the Russell Westbrook news broke during the show, so we should have updated projections and ownership projections near lock for sure for that Lakers team. I expect them to be one of the higher owned players on this slate, especially LeBron. Onto the Sacramento side we go. Domantas Sabonis has been awesome of late. De'Aaron Fox also. Sabonis was questionable, did play. I think there was news that he went through shoot around, as did Harrison Barnes. This Sacramento Kings team is certainly a great option in tournaments. I have interest in Fox and Sabonis. Don't mind taking some options on a guy like Kevin Huerter as well. Talk about the Kings. Sabonis looks solid, as does Fox, but it's a price tag situation here, and the opportunity cost seems like they're worth taking a flyer on, especially in this Lakers matchup.
Yeah, they both look good, and neither one's pulling a ton of ownership on DraftKings because you do have the opportunity cost on top of a 10-3 price tag on Sabonis, but he's playing massive, massive minutes when he avoids foul trouble. You got 41 minutes again last game. That's been a common theme. When he avoids foul trouble, you're just getting 38-plus minutes typically. He's a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy going up against a Thomas Bryant-led front court. Thomas Bryant doesn't get minutes in the NBA and it's not because he can't score, it's because of the defensive end. So Sabonis looks really, really good here, and you're just not going to get that much ownership on DraftKings because everybody's going to go to Thomas Bryant. They're going to go to Mitchell Robinson. They're going to go to Vooch. If you get that 65, 70-point game from Sabonis, you're probably going to need him at 10-3. So I really like him in tournaments. On FanDuel, he has power forward eligibility, so he looks really good there. De'Aaron Fox only pulling about 10% ownership. Did play about 34 minutes last game. I expect that to be about where he settles in now that Davion Mitchell is back, but good matchup for him, reasonable price tag. They both look good. Assuming Barnes is in, I think Huerter, Barnes, Keegan Murray are all reasonable last piece in type options, but nothing that I'm going to get much of. If Barnes were to sit, then it's going to look better for Terrence Davis and Malik Monk in addition to Huerter and Murray.
Yeah, click that like button for us as we wrap up this final game. Charlotte taking on the Clippers. It's the LaMelo Ball show. Last game we saw Nick Richards put on a show as Mason Plumlee was in a ton of foul trouble. Gordon Hayward has returned for this team. They're taking on a Clippers team where it's going to be a tough matchup with all the guys who are questionable are expected to potentially play. I like going to LaMelo Ball yet again, but that's really about it. I can't really go to anyone else in confidence. I want to take a flyer on maybe a Nick Richards again, maybe, but that seems a little too cute. But it's LaMelo Ball and no one really else for me on the Charlotte side. Maybe you disagree with me. Only a 225.5 total.
No, I mean, LaMelo looks good, 8,900. I think he's pretty similar to De'Aaron Fox. You had foul trouble last game, which does plague LaMelo, but should play 34 to 36 if he avoids that. His rebounding numbers are down a bit this year from last year, which I don't think is totally surprising because you are getting basically 48 minutes from Plumlee and Richards, whereas last year they played small more frequently. But still, a very high upside option in ball. At no ownership, I don't mind a $7,700 Oubre or a $6,200 Hayward. No Terry Rozier today, so you should get 37, 38 minutes from Oubre. And Hayward's playing a ton of minutes as well. So, not priorities, but reasonable low-owned guys. And the same can be said for PJ Washington at 5,400.
On to the Clippers side, Paul George practiced. Kawhi Leonard is expected to play. If Zubac is questionable, but he also, I believe, practiced this morning. Reggie Jackson practiced. Now we might get a full Clippers rotation. Maybe Norman Powell might play. He's still questionable. I think we're taking some chances on Kawhi Leonard yet again. I know price tag has gone up. Paul George, if he plays, sure, those guys are always going to be tournament options, but keep in mind when they're both playing and this Clippers team has a loaded rotation, it's tough to go there in confidence, but it's a good matchup against Charlotte. Certainly one of these guys can pay off. If both these guys play, do you have a preference in getting to one or the other?
I don't like this team at all if everybody plays. Kawhi would be the only guy that I think looks decent. He's playing around 32 minutes. He's averaged 1.16 DraftKings points per minute this year. So he would look fine. But if everybody's in, I don't really have much interest anywhere. There's just guys that I like better than everybody. If George is out, clearly it makes Kawhi look better along with everyone else. If Jackson were to sit, John Wall looks good at 6,200. But assuming these guys are in, it's a little bit of Kawhi for me and probably not much of anything else. If Zubac were to sit, you still need to figure out who the starting center is. Last game, it was Diabate. He played 18 minutes. Moses Brown played 4. I'd seen people in chat asking about Moses Brown. Based on last game, there's nothing you can do with that. But if Moses Brown were to start, then sure. But yeah, as of now, I'm assuming that these guys, or at least most of these guys, play, and it's going to make this team pretty unappealing.
Yeah, I don't know where Diabate is. He might have gotten sent down again, but shout out to Michigan. Diabate, I think an awesome talent. I think he left school a little too early, but if he were to start, I'm willing to take some chances on him.
Yeah, he is listed as out right now for what it's worth.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That wraps up this 11-game slate. I know we went a little bit over. Good luck to everyone tonight. Live Before Lock is next. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and good luck tonight.
Yo, it's that time of week again, and it's a special time of week. It's the holiday season. We got Christmas upon us. Hanukkah's happening right now, and that means we're giving some stuff out, like some Stokastic Plus Platinum memberships, putting people up in the Hall of Fame here, and all you got to do to get involved is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at StokasticHOF on Twitter. You want to get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum? You want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame? That's how we do it. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, you're in. Let's get started on what we've got going for this week. Some big winners, starting it off with Clem822, Michael P. Clement, to be exact. Thank you, guys. Best tools in the industry. Special thanks to Player Q DFS and Draftaholic. Look at that. Top tying himself with $4,700 on each of them. Huge win for Michael. Next up, we're talking Trafalgar Law. It's easier to say Louis with the $15,000 win. One shot hit. Thank you to Josh and Eric for the Kessler pick and all the advice from everybody else. LFG, huge win, Louis. Congratulations with solo shot, just straight single bullets across the board. And D Fick with a $2,000 win. Thank you, Matt Kajeski and Stokastic, for my best college finish to date. Oh, and we got D Fick again. Always nice to solo bing a large field showdown. Player Q DFS has mapped out how to do it pretty nicely. He 100% has. Another $1,000 win for D-Fit. Our boy News Guide, you've seen him in chat. You've seen him in Discord. Man's working every hour of the day. Shout out to Stokastic projected stats page. Turning a $10 bet into 466 using all of our projected props over there with OddsShopper and Stokastic. Keith Roberts when that Russell Gage garbage time touchdown brings Christmas a week early. Shout out to the whole Stokastic crew for the tools and daily knowledge. Stop throwing your money away and go check them out. Damn right, Keith. $5,000 win. Merry Christmas, brother. And Jay Lusty with a $4,000 win. He's a simple man. At Stokastic is all he has to say. But we got $4,000 there. A little NBA action for Jay Lusty. And we're going to go with how do we do this one? Darek Barbour. I got one. Thanks. $1,000 in the $15,000 single back 3 entry. Congratulations, man. Next up, we got Andrew St. Clair. Yeah, buddy. $2,500. AT St. Clair over there on FanDuel with an NFL one. We had a nice Sunday, it looks like. And then you got, oh, this is the big one. S. Schaefer. Stokastic is fantastic. Took first and 6th. Thanks for providing the tools and the commentary to bring home the big win. Props to Greg Ehrenberg and Gundacker for the pre-slate show. Pre-lock breakdowns are essential to my process. Chalk up another one for the Stokastic Hall of Fame. $100,000 win, 6 figures for Schaefer. Huge win, man. Congratulations. Remember, download the Stokastic avatar at stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame and win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here.
God, what a fucking nerd. Absolute nerd. Whatever. Is he swaying? Are you swaying to the beat? It's not that good of a beat. You can do better.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock. And if you guys were just watching, we had the Hall of Fame segment that was going on in between shows. So we've been trying to place it there. So if you guys want to be a part of the Stokastic Hall of Fame, even though we've changed where we do the read, you could still be a part of it. You could still get shouted out on that read that Lofty does in between shows. If you guys want to partake, you finish at the top of the GPP, one of the top places, and you have this Stokastic avatar downloaded as your avatar for DraftKings and FanDuel, make sure that's your avatar, place top 3 in a contest, then tweet your win to @StokasticHOF on Twitter, and then you can win 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum and get featured on that segment we have there. So don't forget, we still have the Hall of Fame going. We love to see when you guys win. We love to have those tweeted at us on Twitter. So we appreciate any of those winning messages we get from you guys. Eric, what's going on? We got a lot of injury news today, don't we?
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces. We just got a little bit before the show, kind of in the interim between each of them. But shout out Rayen, going 13 over, killing a lot of time on our show. I got to appreciate that during the holiday season. Shout out to my guy, Rinpack. He was frazzled, but he bedazzled. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was one of the longer deeper dive shows, I believe, in the history of the company.
Did you reach out to him? Did you let him know he was going 7 minutes over, Greg?
So
like you
honestly,
do to me every time.
Jordan could back me up on this. I messaged him and I assumed I was in the wrong Zoom chat. I just thought I was in the wrong place. Like, as I was panicking for a second, because I'm sitting here, I'm trying to update for some of the information because we just got a whole bunch of news that came in. You know, Kyrie Irving was downgraded to questionable. Marcus Smart ruled out. Kem Birch ruled out. Gary Trent ruled out. So I'm kind of updating for stuff. And when that happens, you know, I just sit here and Zoom. I kind of lose track of time while I'm trying to figure everything out. And then I look up, I'm like, oh shit, the show was supposed to start 7 minutes ago. Am I in the wrong Zoom? Mm-hmm. And then I messaged Jordan. He was like, no. Ryan's just running a little long here. So
time doesn't matter. We're here forever, right? Oh wait, no, we're not. So there we go. We should probably go on. We're all going to die one day. Happy thoughts leading into the slate.
Not me, but we've got we do have the slate to talk about now. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to No House Advantage, who's our sponsor today. So I want to know if you're on the same page as me, Eric. I just mentioned that Kyrie Irving downgraded to questionable.
He's saying
30. I agree. I'm on the same page as you. So assuming Kyrie does not play, what are we going to be looking
at? My favorite play is Edmund Sumner. Did we just lose Greg to the upside down?
What happened?
Oh, man. You froze so hard. It was just
Oh, well, now you're just looking like an idiot with your teeth sticking out. But
that was you.
No. Oh, was it? I don't
you.
know. I went to retweet the link on Twitter to say that it was that we were starting the show. And I looked down, I come up and I could hear you talking, but apparently my face froze for a second.
Yeah, it did. It was lovely. You look great. You're doing great, sweetie. You're doing great. I like Ben Simmons. I like Edmund Sumner. I like Kevin Durant. I think we both like Kevin Durant a ton. And this is going to trim some of the LeBron ownership, which is very, very nice. He is so popular. He is so well deserved to be popular. Going up against Sacramento, he's going to be a one-man wrecking crew you would expect. Nearly a 240 total in that game. Everything looks good to me for LeBron. He's good chalk, but I want to get to Kevin Durant as a stud here. 10-5. Yeah, he does share the floor with Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons, it's not like he's going to cut into Kevin Durant's usage. Ben Simmons can do other things on a basketball floor, not that. So, firing it up. Everybody in the NBA that plays tonight doesn't have to play tomorrow. Then they have some games Friday, and then there's no games on Christmas Eve. So we've got a very interesting thing here where I think studs can play a lot more minutes than normal if games are competitive. I know this one's an 11 spread now. It's come down a little bit from 12.5. They're giving a lot of respect to Kevin Durant there. I'm kind of contemplating if I want to do anything on the Golden State side there, but Kevin Durant 10-5. Welcome to the conversation of best pay-ups on the slate.
Yeah, and the thing that's going to be of interest to me is just what ends up happening with his ownership, because this game locks fairly early, but not before the slate starts. So I'm hoping that Kyrie Irving doesn't get ruled out until after the first game's tip, because that's kind of when we typically end up getting in that sweet spot for players being good value, but also not quite enough time for the field to react to it. And if there's been any day you guys want to stick around for the post-lock show that Eric and I do for 30 minutes, today's the day, because the 30 minutes post-lock, we're going to be breaking down some of our favorite bets and then anything that happens to change with any sort of injury news. And I think we're going to get some of that today because Kyrie Irving looks like he could be a game time decision. And at least as of right now, Kevin Durant is projected for 3% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Kevin Durant is projected for also 3% ownership, price tag 10,500, 10,600. So I love getting to Kevin Durant right now as a pivot off of LeBron James. I love getting to both of them in the same lineups because I don't think people are just going to assume that Kyrie Irving is out as we are.
I agree. And they should. You get a late downgrade in a game where you're a double-digit favorite. Everything points towards them just letting Kevin Durant have that and Kyrie Irving sitting. We've seen Edmund Sumner be serviceable in backup relief duty a couple of times, really during that entire stretch where you had Simmons out and then you had a couple of games where Kyrie was out there too for that like week and a half stretch. But everything looks good for getting to Kevin Durant ad nauseum.
So let's talk about the Boston Celtics news, because this one, even more recent than the Kyrie Irving and more definitive, because Kyrie Irving's still officially questionable. You and I are assuming that he's not going to play, but has not officially been ruled out. But one guy that has officially been ruled out is Marcus Smart. So Marcus Smart was actually downgraded to questionable early in the day while I was doing the strategy show with Adam, and then gets downgraded out just as we were about to start this show. So with Marcus Smart out of the picture, this isn't quite the same as some other Celtics scenarios where Marcus Smart is out, because they also have Robert Williams in the mix now, who's going to take up some minutes, and that's going to mean a little bit less small ball from the Celtics. But are there any value pieces that you're going to like to get to from Boston now?
Yeah, I like to get to is probably the right way of saying it. I mean, it's a fantastic matchup going up against the Pacers. I think by far the guy you have to look at the most is Malcolm Brogdon, sixth man, comes off the bench, and even going to garbage time, it's a double-digit spread. If it ends up shooting out, Malcolm Brogdon's probably shutting down the gym for him. So I feel pretty good about him at 5,100. I think we're starting to, it's an 11-game slate, so there's a lot of other places to go, but I think Derek White, 3,900, just keeps dropping further and further. And it's so weird that he still doesn't project out all that well for me, even at 3,900. We assume he's starting. We assume that if it's competitive, which is an if, I suppose, in this spot, 28 minutes, 30 minutes, kind of like right in that ballpark. Do we want to play a ton of him? I expect him to get really, really popular over the course of the next 40 minutes, and that has me a little bit apprehensive. If this were to have happened right before this game were to lock, that would be awesome. But this happened really, really early on with 70 minutes until lock of that game. I expect his ownership to come up to a place where I'm probably going to land on more Malcolm Brogdon.
It is the same case for me. I have Malcolm Brogdon projected a little bit better, and just going to refresh our ownership to see where the players landed here, because we do have an ownership update from a couple minutes ago. but that does not account for Marcus Smart being out quite yet. So when we get an update on that, I will be circling back on that, and we'll go over some of the ownership for guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White. I like both of them. My preference is for Malcolm Brogdon, which seems to be the case for you. And then as for Derek White, I know you say you don't have him projected that well, but relative to his price point, I still think he's a good value play. Do you agree with that at least?
Yeah, I absolutely do. For me, I'm making an assumption about what ownership could look like, because the same way that most people, it's like a mental thing. Maybe this is just me trying to gauge what the field's going to do, but he's sub 4K. And whenever you see a guy who's like 3,900, who's going to project for 23, let me just say, if he goes for 23, I don't think you want him in this spot. Like, I would probably be giving up a lineup spot. It's an 11-game slate. You're going to need a big score like most nights. There's a lot of good chalk that I think exists out in the world. The Thomas Bryants and the LeBron Jameses and the Dennis Schroeders of the world, all from that Lakers game and the late night hammer. If I get more exposure to that game, I can react to late swaps. And then, hey, if I land on the best plays of the slate later on in the evening, so be it. But it's kind of a no-brainer for me that when people see 3,900, that they're just going to play a lot more of him. And I think Malcolm Brogdon, he's just projecting out for nearly 8 fantasy points more for me. It's, a $1,200 difference, so I understand. But like, LeBron's cheaper than you would expect. Kevin Durant without Kyrie is way cheaper than you would expect for this scenario as well. I feel really good about them, and they're not like at the 11-5, 12K, 12-5 type Jokic and Doncic type stratosphere we've had the last couple of days.
Yeah, and it's just also other guys who, by the way, right now I'm getting to a good amount of Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White as I'm rerunning my lineups. But one thing that I think will definitely change this is once we find out for sure, like I already like Kevin Durant. I haven't really done anything with the value guys for the Nets yet because I don't know what the starting lineup is going to be. So I know you said you definitely like Edmund Sumner, but is that an assumption or are you already building lineups that have Sumner in them?
Assumption. I think there's a chance Ben Simmons could like play point guard in the starting lineup. I mean, you have Royce O'Neal that's going to have to be sharing the floor. He's been out a little bit, but playing shooting guard, I guess he could just play at the 2. You play him the 2, Simmons at the 3, Durant at the 4, Claxton at the 5. I would assume Edmund Sumner ends up playing there just because he's had a couple of those starts. He started for nearly 2 weeks absent Kyrie Irving during the whole you-know-what thing. It's like, I feel pretty good about him at 3,300 being a piece that if nobody is going to click on it between now and forever, I just hope that starting up lineup comes out as late as possible because that's a really cheap piece. And again, $600 cheaper than Derek White. He's been pretty good in relief in some of these spots. I mean, he had a pretty decent fantasy point per minute rate playing alongside Kevin Durant there for that stretch at the beginning of November. Had nearly a 25% usage rate over the course of the last week of him starting there. Those aren't like nothing type numbers. And, it's Kevin Durant who's going to lead the way in usage, but Ben Simmons isn't that guy. Claxton's not that guy. Royce O'Neal, he's had points in time, but he's been really low down in the usage order. He's literally at a 10.2 usage rate the last 3 games in a row. I mean, we're talking about very low usage guys that he's going to be playing next to. I like Edmund Sumner a lot if he starts.
Yeah, so that for me is just I don't know what to do with the value guys on the Nets because I just don't know what the starting lineup is going to be. We just got the Warriors starting lineup. We're going to talk on that in a second because that's not anything unexpected who the starters are, but at the same time too, like you never exactly know who the Warriors are going to go with starter. So we're going to address that. Also, Rudy Gobert, Kyle Anderson, they're both listed as questionable, and they are going to be game time decisions for the Timberwolves. But the starting lineup for the Warriors, Eric. And by the way, if anybody has questions for us, you're in the Discord chat at me, and we'll be answering them. Golden State Warriors starting lineup: Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney. No weird shenanigans in the starting lineup. I like to see that. This could have been fun, like Ty Jerome randomly starting or some weird shit like that. We got a lineup that if I was to project the starting 5 for the Warriors, this is what it would have been. So now that we know that is the starting unit, what do you make of it?
They're just guys on this slate. There's enough other spots where there's underpriced guys. I mean, Schroeder still has a ridiculous tag. Thomas Bryant, still a ridiculous tag. LeBron James, sub 10K, ridiculous tag. There's Jordan Poole at 8,200. I think he's a good play. I'm going to get there for sure. He projected out well for everybody yesterday and burned the entire universe. Maybe that ownership does come down a little bit. I doubt it. He's still a really good play. I ended up with less of him than I expected yesterday, and not because I didn't think he was a good play, but they didn't have to extend anybody in that entire second half. They just put up an entire dud. Fourth quarter was just nobody's playing for both the Knicks and the Golden State Warriors since they were both on back-to-backs in New York. So I'm feeling getting to Jordan Poole is about the only thing I really want to do with that. This Moody ownership is out of control, though. I mean, you want to talk about a 1-for-1 pivot in that entire game. 3,300. Give me Edmund Sumner over Moses Moody every single time. Everybody went gaga for Moses Moody yesterday. He put up 20 or less than 20 in 32 minutes.
He was what, 17% owned? Like,
that didn't win you jack diddly squat yesterday on a 5-gamer. Let me just say, when you jack diddly squat.
Yeah. I mean, 17% owned isn't some kind of totally insane ownership, though.
Yeah, but it was a 5-gamer, and now he's higher owned today. What are we doing here? So on an 11-gamer, give me Edmund Sumner every single time. Once again, I want that lineup news to come out as late as possible, because then if you're watching the show, you have my assumption about who's starting. I think it's him, but it could be Seth Curry. It could be Joe Harris if you're going to play Ben Simmons and have him handle the ball, I guess, or Kevin Durant play, some point Durant. Like, there's a lot of ways it could go, but I want it to be Sumner. He's an identical tag. I would take straight up, if they were to be identical, 20% ownership. Give me Sumner every single time.
Yeah. So if Sumner starts, yes, I'm going to have Sumner projected higher, and I would prefer it. But what if Sumner comes off the bench and we already know Moody is starting. If Sumner's coming off the bench, who would you prefer between Moody and Sumner?
I mean, you're probably getting Sumner at like 2% to Moody's 20, and I'd probably still prefer him. But I would say that I'd probably get to almost next to none of both.
Okay. And then something else that I think we should talk about, just because we have so much of this value we're kind of waiting on in this 7:30 time slot, where we've got the Nets being the big one, waiting for Kyrie, and then also what's going to happen with the starting lineup. So how are you going to handle the first couple of games on the slate? Because we got Bucks, Cavs, and we've got Pistons, 76ers locking right at the start of the slate. Then we got 30 minutes before some of the other news drops. Assuming we don't get the Kyrie news in the Nets starting lineup prior to tip, what are you going to do with the first 2 games of the night?
Yeah, so there's only 2 players pulling any kind of ownership. I literally did this right before we started the show. So I like this exercise. I think it's the most important thing we can talk you through, because it's like, who is going to fall through the cracks of the first games? Who can you not live without? Well, there's a lot of high upside options, but they're not great game environments. You have Philadelphia. They're double-digit favorites at home against Detroit. If they blow them out, probably James Harden and Joel Embiid are mainly the 2 guys who get it done there for them. You've got Embiid pulling very low ownership. I think you want to be interested in that going up against Durant on a back-to-back, going up against the Pistons on a back-to-back. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo in the game environment, like Cleveland has the best interior defense, the best adjusted defense on dunks and threes. Makes all the sense in all the land to try to play a little bit when he's going to be 0.6% because it's Giannis. But like, I'm getting to 4% Giannis. I'm getting to 6% Joel Embiid, and I don't have anybody else in the entire window of games over 4% in my run of 50 lineups. That's what I'm playing today. So it's like, I don't really think I have to force anything else. I think Donovan Mitchell makes sense as a contrarian option, but I don't like Jaden Ivey at his current ownership. I don't like Kevin Love. I think he's a really, really weird play now. 3,800. I understand that he could go down, drop your thing down and do whatever else. He did play 24 minutes against Utah, but some of that was blowout run. I think in competitive games, he's playing around 18 minutes, and he would really have to go nuts. I think at 7.6%, I'd just rather wait on later news.
Yeah, no, I mean, the way that I'm approaching this is, like guys like Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey. My initial builds, I was not getting to a ton of these guys, but they were in the mix for me. And now as some of this news comes out and trying to reserve lineup spots for Nets guys and whatnot, just not players that I'm really getting to anymore. It's not because I think they're bad points per dollar plays. I just think better ones are going to open up later that the field is potentially not really going to be getting to. But we've got some questions coming in the Discord channel right now. First, from Kazoo Elitist, Anthony Lamb or Aaron Nesmith as a last man in. He also notes that he is already playing Jonathan Kuminga. So between Lamb and Nesmith, so for now, I'm going to say Lamb, with the idea of this being, though, that you're probably going to swap off whoever it is anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so for now, Lamb, I haven't projected better, but once we get guys ruled out for the Nets, I think you're going to find another play that you like better there. The next
Whatever
question
happened to Jeremy Lamb, by the way? That's all it made me hear and think about. He like hit that shot up in Toronto, that half quarter for Charlotte that was just wild. And then where has he been?
Well, I just tried to Google Jeremy Lamb and I got a fail error on Google. So whatever it is, the internet, the lords of the internet don't want us to find out about it.
I'm just wondering because like he was in the NBA within the last year or two playing minutes for Charlotte.
Let's see. Jeremy Lamb is on the Kings.
Is he? It's kind of wild. I had no idea.
Yeah, he's on the Kings. At
Shout
least
out
that's what it
UConn.
says on Wikipedia.
Jeremy Lamb does play for the Kings. That seems impossible that I wouldn't know that.
Well, Eric, every once in a while there's things that maybe has he been hurt this year or something? I mean, he's
not
also
even listed on Cruncher.
I don't know. He hasn't been playing basketball this year.
Yeah, I just Googled or I just put in DK, also searched the bar. Jeremy Lamb doesn't come up. I was just wondering because like that's a name that I just haven't seen or heard of forever. And I remember he hit that like ridiculous turnaround 3 dagger, danced down to the other end of the court. Probably the craziest game winner that I've ever seen in the NBA. And now I just haven't seen his name since then.
By the way, play is relative because I see over under in the chat is saying that doesn't play on the Kings. I know he's not playing, but according to his Wikipedia, he's on the roster right now. That could be incorrect though. The NBA.com has him on the Kings as well.
What in the world? Where is he?
He's just not good enough to be on the active roster.
Not on injury report. Personal. He's just gone for personal. I have no idea. This is wild. Anyway, back to other things, but wanted to go on a deep dive there quick.
We've got some questions in the Discord chat. A bunch of them now referring to and people asking about the Kyrie situation. By the way, Franz Wagner will play today. So Wagner was listed as questionable. It was uncertain if he was going to play. Now that he's in, good. That's one less thing we have to update for. Jets World wants to know if Irving is out, pick 2 out of these. Durant, LeBron, Poole, and Vooch. Durant, LeBron.
By far. And I know they're completely different salary structures and everything. We'll talk about Vooch. I am not getting to this ownership right now. I'm just not.
And then another question here from Alex. Assuming Kyrie is out, do you like the lineup of Fox, Simmons, Lonnie Walker, Moody, Lamb, Kuminga, KD, LeBron James, Thomas Bryant? Individually, I don't have issues with any of those plays. Fox, I think, could be a really, really strong option. If Sabonis is ruled out, Simmons and KD, they would both be benefiting in the absence of Kyrie. And then, yeah, I think everything in there makes sense. I have no issues with any of those. I got to ask you this because I think that this is like the major question mark of the slate. Like we have the Lakers and we're going to play a lot of Lakers. So it makes it easy to swap around as news comes out. We have 2 hours of extra time to react to how our lineups are doing from 8 p.m. Eastern time until 10 p.m. Eastern time. That is very, very important and very crucial when you're playing DFS to be able to react to how your lineups are doing and know what swaps you might need to make, or if you're doing well or if you're doing poorly. What would you do if Sabonis got ruled out? Who do you think automatically becomes the guy? Because I think I have some weird answers for this. Yeah, I mean, if your answer is Jeremy Lamb, that would definitely be unexpected after we just found out he's on the Kings.
Yeah, I was going to say, just found out. Because Neemias Queta is the guy that I think, I don't know. It's a very, very strange spot because he just got back. He played on the 19th here. He just emerged, played 7 minutes. Trey Lyles, I think, is who everybody ends up flocking to. And I don't know if that's necessarily correct. And I know they're at the same 3K number, but like one gives you power forward eligibility. And I'm nervous about crunching, trying to put like Trey Lyles into lineups as opposed to putting Keto, who would have to be at center, into lineups.
And assume Rashawn Holmes would get minutes as well. And another aspect of this too that we should consider is that Harrison Barnes is also questionable.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different permutations. Personally, I think that we're going to see both Barnes and Sabonis play. They went through shoot around earlier with no issues. So early in the day, I was a little uncertain. I'm just assuming both play at this point, but it's also not, since we have so much exposure to guys like LeBron, Dennis Schroeder, other Lakers, it's not going to be a hard situation for me to pivot to if the news ends up being different than Sabonis and Barnes playing. So if they're ruled out, first, De'Aaron Fox would be a really high priority play for me. And then as for other guys like Terrence Davis moving to the starting lineup, I just can't project him for a lot of minutes as a starter, though.
But that dude, I mean, I went back and forth and I projected him around 24 minutes last time. He's just such a good fantasy point per minute guy that if as long as that news comes out way later, he will not be popular. The last time we had that situation, it was going to Toronto in a revenge spot for him. And, I went back and forth with Jesse and Adam on Twitter about whatever. And, I'm still believing I'm on the right side of it. I was looking for any type of value there. He was 3,500 on the slate. He's at 4K now. And, if I have dead lineups, I'll try to get to some of him off of Thomas Bryant if that works out. I mean, it's a $1,300 difference in the flex, but I think the main reason that I'm bringing up the Sacramento thing is that we're going to have 3 lineup spots that are used in a lot of lineups for the likes of LeBron James, Dennis Schroeder, Thomas Bryant. I think they're all 3 exceptional plays, but I don't really like any of the other plays there. And that would make whoever ends up starting at center a very difficult ask to get to in lineups because you're going to leave $1,000 of salary on the table. And then the other game that you have to pivot to would be Charlotte and Los Angeles. I'm going to that game tonight, but I can tell you it is low scoring. The Clippers are very good defensively when you have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George in the fray. And, we're going to wait on some of that news, but I assume he plays tonight. And the under is 15-2 in those type of games. Other than LaMelo Ball, I really don't have any exposure to that game at all. And so it's just a weird salary hiccup to be cognizant of as you're getting closer to that 8 p.m. Eastern time lock, because once that goes by, you can't do anything about it.
Some more news just came in. Dwight Powell is going to play, but will come off the bench. So I assume that Christian Wood is just the starter at center now for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes.
It's something that beat reporters have said was going to happen for weeks now. They've said that the Mavericks were leaning towards starting Christian Wood, and then it just didn't happen for the longest time. But now that we do know that Powell is playing but coming off the bench, it to me that all the indications are Christian Wood's starter. Probably going to be his role for the foreseeable future.
How about, hang on, we didn't talk about that yesterday because we were too busy lamenting the fact that Jordan Klein doesn't trust me and believe in me and put my lineups in right away. But
yeah, well, I mean, he gets better lines. He gets better lines by not listening to you.
Yeah. Taco Tuesday, whatever. Now I forgot even what I was. Oh, we had the back and forth about Christian Wood and whomever. We were like, oh, which one is it? And I picked Christian Wood and you picked somebody else, and they had the exact same amount of fantasy points.
Yeah, it wasn't yesterday. So Monday, you and I debated Paulo Banchero versus Christian Wood for a couple minutes, and the over. I was on Banchero, you were on Christian Wood, and the end result was Banchero scored 38.5 fantasy points, and Christian Wood scored 38.25, and it was totally irrelevant talking point. But so now that
personally,
Christian
you
Wood,
won, right?
What's that?
So you actually won, right?
I mean, not really. I mean, technically, if we want to break it down, Christian Wood was $300 more expensive than Banchero and scored 0.25 less fantasy points, but neither here nor there. Christian Wood starting today against a potentially Rudy Gobert-less Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah. What are you going to do with Christian Wood now that he's starting?
I mean, I project him, I feel like, higher than we did last time. I'm going to project him probably a little bit higher. I have him north of 40 again, but he's 8,100 now on this slate. It's going to be tougher because I am going to have a lot of LeBron James and Kevin Durant in my lineups. We both like him very, very much. It's an exact repeat of the same scenario, but you do. I don't really know what to say. I mean, I assume Gobert plays. I said that last time too. He didn't, and then we just played 100% Naz Reid. That went well. You'll do the same thing again tonight, even at 5,900. It's wild to even say that, but I'll have a ton of him even at that number. I like him. I can play him at power forward. That's very important, but I don't think I'm going to get there in any kind of the same way. Completely different circumstances on an 11 gamer. I think there's good value, but he'll probably just be a guy that if it ends up being low owned, I'll probably pull the trigger on a little bit more, but not going to project out as a must have at 8,100 when you have Durant 10-5 without Kyrie, potentially, and then 9,900 LeBron.
Shout out to No House Advantage, the sponsor of today's show. NHA, they always have overlay that you guys should be taking advantage of. You're not going to find it on FanDuel. You're not going to find it on DraftKings, but pretty regularly. Contests are only filling halfway or so over on No House Advantage. So if you guys haven't signed up at NHA, do it by clicking on the link below because that is going to get you up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. But also, if you're in a state that does not have sports betting, but you can play on NHA, they do have props you could play against the house. So we've got projections for that over at Stokastic.com. And we're going to be breaking that down a little bit later in the post-lock show as well, trying to identify some of our favorite spots. And there we go. Kyrie Irving has been ruled out. So
too early for my liking.
20 minutes to go until lock, though. So it's not like this is so early that people are going to get to. LeBron's still going to be, triple the ownership of Durant?
Probably, but also different price point, game environment. One is, I like having LeBron knowing that he has to play well for it to be competitive, because if he just plays bad, they're going to get slammed and those lineups are dead anyway. But like the Brooklyn thing, Kevin Durant can go out and play well and not be a must-have at 10-5, considering they're double-digit favorites. No Kyrie certainly should help the spread, but yeah, I'm going to get to a ton of him. And Quentin Grimes officially out now too. That was something for the Miles McBride conversation that I do not want to have, but probably should.
All right. So we don't have to talk too much more in detail about, because we've already spent like half the show talking about Kyrie Irving.
Edmund Sumner, for a reminder, that's who I think starts. And if he does, you should play him. Anybody else becomes interesting, probably, as long as it's like Seth Curry or something, if Ben Simmons is going to handle the ball and do whatever, but we're going to be waiting. Oh, Ryan Tannehill done for the season. That is important for the old Rainmaker season.
All right. Sorry. We got a bunch of super chats, bunch of questions in Discord. Let's try to bang these out as we wait on the Nets starting lineup. Michael McKinney, 5 must plays for FanDuel cash games. So for right now, I would say must plays in FanDuel cash: LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Jonathan Kuminga. Zach LaVine is crazy underpriced on FanDuel. And I would say Malcolm Brogdon as well.
All of that sounded great.
Okay. The next question we have here is from Zachary Pinnell. He wants to know Siakam or Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant for me.
Kevin Durant.
The next super chat that we have, does that answer all of them? Sometimes YouTube is really weird where you're trying to scroll through the chats and it gets kind of frozen. Here we go. All right. The rest of the stuff loaded here. Duke Nicola. Rank Wiseman, Sumner, Moody, and McBride for DK GPP. So Sumner's kind of a tricky one to rank because it's going to depend on if he starts or not. Assuming he starts, I like him a lot. If he's coming off the bench, I don't like him as much. But right now, Sumner 1 for me, Moody 2, McBride 3, Wiseman 4. What happened?
Andrew Jennison, you absolutely hit it on the head. I've never been called out so correctly. Eric adjusting Willis listings as Greg speaks. That's literally what I was doing, because I have a legendary Willis that I bought when Ryan Tannehill got hurt. And yeah, anyway, you're welcome. I promise I'm back.
Do you have an answer for the question, by the way?
No, I could you repeat the question, Your Honor?
Yes. Duke Nicola wants to know if we could rank Wiseman, Sumner, Moody, and McBride for DK.
Oh, I did see that question come through. Sumner, assuming he starts, would be 1. So just enjoy that. McBride is, oh my God. Well, Wiseman is just last because it's Wiseman. I'll go Sumner, McBride, Moody, Wiseman.
Okay. The next question we got from, here we go. The Claw 28. Best small forward on DK for 7,000 and under.
Well, that's Durant and LeBron. Doesn't fit the criteria. God, I wish you had 100.
I mean, the one I have projected the best is RJ Barrett, but I don't expect he's someone I'm going to end up really getting to.
I would not play RJ Barrett. I never play RJ Barrett. Have we established RJ Barrett had like an outlier season and it's just not very good?
Yes. Do you have an answer
though? RJ Barrett.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, it's to me, I would say probably this is just the stars and scrubs slate now. I would probably restructure your lineup a little bit there. The next question we have is from Catsturd, and Catsturd wants to know must plays in DK small field single entry. Thanks. So the guys that we are going to be getting the most exposure to, I would say LeBron, I would say Kevin Durant, Dennis Schroeder, Thomas Bryant, and then whoever starts for the Nets at a cheap price point.
I agree with all of that. Let's see. Bored with this shtick. Rich C. Well, Greg was kidding, by the way, on Twitter. Greg loves me.
Which?
You DM'd him on Twitter, right? That was the DM you sent? Wasn't that? No. Never mind.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I only speak the truth about you. I've never told a lie ever in my entire life.
That's what it is, right? That was a lie in itself.
Do you have about Christian Wood officially starting? Anybody you would add to that as must plays in a DK single entry?
Must plays LeBron, Kevin Durant feel really, really good to me. Edmund Sumner I'm just on the board that he's starting here with it. Dennis Schroeder, 4,700. That's a ridiculous number. And I will throw in who's my one favorite one as I'm going through my projections. I mean, Domantas Sabonis is going to be very, 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 very low owned against the Lakers, who play up and pace. That game should be flying, and he does absolutely everything for him. As long as he plays, I am going to find paths to turn some LeBron into some Domantas Sabonis for 400 more. It shouldn't be that difficult to be able to pull off. I was toying with it a little bit as I'm kind of planning out some late swap stuff, but I'll put Sabonis in. It seems ridiculous to even say that considering that tag, but nobody is going to be clicking on him. It's at 11% that we haven't projected for. I would be shocked seeing that he has a Q tag next to him if that were the case.
Yeah, I do not think people are going to play him either. By the way, I'm still waiting on what the Nets starting lineup is going to be. But are there any other players that you are going to be getting to in the mid-range? Because I actually think Royce O'Neal is viable now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Nets that are viable. I mean, Ben Simmons has to at least be discussed. He's going to be too low owned. 6,200 is not nothing for a dude who can go out and give you a triple double any random day. He did play 32 minutes against Toronto in that competitive game. Do they want to play him 32 minutes a night here based on his injury history and a lot of other things? We'll find out. Probably doesn't even get to 32, but he doesn't need to at 6,200 for a guy that, despite his faults, is still over a fantasy point per minute guy this season. So I think at 6,200, if he could be starting playing point too, which is not something we've seen a ton, but obviously that's going to happen when you have Kyrie on your team. But Ben Simmons, definitely somebody there. Royce O'Neal, it's such a difficult situation because he's not a good fantasy point per minute guy, but he plays so many damn minutes that it's hard not to have a little bit of interest there. 4,900, it makes some sense. Watanabe showing up for me now as well, 3,700. There's a lot of pieces of who could be the starter if it's going to be Sumner that we want to get to, but a lot of ancillary pieces coming off the bench that could be very interesting, especially if you get blowout run.
Yeah, I'm getting to a little bit of Watanabe here. Simmons, Durant is still going to be the preeminent play for me. That is unless we do find out that Edmund Sumner is starting, but that still remains to be seen. Super chat here from Vince Gator 1979. I saw the super chat for it, and I remember his name. I couldn't remember exactly what year it was, but he's asking us Isaiah Jackson or Davis Bertans. My friend, you do not need to be playing Davis Bertans or Isaiah Jackson today.
Withdraw entries.
No, I wouldn't say that. Just find a different value play.
Find different value.
Let's see. What is the price point on these guys that he's looking to play one of them?
I doubt. I did the Pacers rotation earlier today. I had him for 7. How many minutes I put? No, I have him for 15 minutes. Don't play Isaiah Jackson. That is madness, my friend. You're doing stuff like that. You're just hoping that it's a massive blowout and that he somehow gets you to 28. And I get the thinking of why you're trying something like that, but there are a lot of iterations of this basketball game where it stays close, or Boston's up 12 and they still have all the starters out there, and Jackson plays 16 minutes. Most of the time, Jackson is playing 16 minutes, and that's not going to do it for you on a 11 game slate.
Yeah, I think there's just better guys to get to. So if you had to pick one of them, I have Isaiah Jackson projected better, but I don't think either of them are worth playing on this slate. The next super chat we have is from The Claw. He wants to know who's the best utility play on DraftKings for 5,200 and under. So he's got $5,200 to play with. And he wants to know who to play. Who do I have projected the best? Malcolm Brogdon at 5,100 is who I have projected the best there. The second best for me is Dennis Schroeder. I think there's a pretty good chance you have both of those guys, though. So the next one for me is Royce O'Neal.
I like all of that. Royce O'Neal, the next guy up. That's pretty wild. Let me actually answer the question. I promise I'm here. I'm functioning. I'm doing the right things. I would put Mitchell Robinson into the conversation at 5,100. They didn't have to play a ton of minutes, and Siakam is very good at the old basketball, but we've seen Hartenstein kind of take a back seat now of late to Mitchell Robinson. He's been playing low 30s minutes in competitive games. I think that you can't sleep on him as a great option today for tournaments.
Is that going to be your answer?
Yeah, that's my answer. I'll go him just to give him somebody different.
Okay. So for me, just to reiterate, my answer is my answer is Malcolm Brogdon. But if you already have Brogdon, then this is going to be one of those things where it's If yes, then keep going. If no, in one of those flow charts. So Brogdon first. If you already have Brogdon, then Dennis Schroeder. I know both these guys are popular, so there's a good chance you already have both of them. And then my answer after that is Royce O'Neal. So that is where I'm going. Questions we have in the Discord channel. First from SMK Joker. Thanks for the great show yesterday. Top 3 finish. Congratulations. Love to see it. Top exposures for center for FanDuel. So for center over at FanDuel, still going to be Thomas Bryant. I know that he's a little bit more expensive. By the way, FanDuel, shout out. They've done a terrific job pricing, much better job of pricing than DK has done as of late. So I think that he certainly makes sense. And then another one I really like is Domantas Sabonis. I think he's more likely to play than not. He's been an absolute fantasy monster as of late. He's projected for some ownership right now, but I really don't think the field is going to get there. Eric mentioned that before. He's got the questionable tag. He's in a later start game. Sabonis is one of my favorite tournament plays on FanDuel because it's so easy to get to him when he's the power forward and center eligibility relative to DK, where he only has the center eligibility. So Sabonis and Thomas Bryant for me. Anybody you would add to that?
Sabonis, Thomas Bryant, it's center on FanDuel. I'm going through them here. It's like, I mean, you could throw Embiid in just because he is so low owned and he's got a higher optimal percentage and positive leverage in the boom bust tool, but I can't imagine 11-9 Joel Embiid. I want to get a ton of there. Definitely like the Domantas Sabonis call out. Doesn't he have power forward eligibility over there though?
Yeah. Power forward and center.
Yeah. Center. Okay. I mean, yeah, he could go in either spot. There's a lot of good power forwards today. You have Kevin Durant, LeBron James. You can play at small forward, power forward. You've got, a number of options. We could have Minnesota value for the 94,876th slate in a row. So you never know. I'm on board with that though. Bryant would probably be my favorite, and then Sabonis.
I think we're going to get Rudy Gobert back today. That's just my gut feeling. I have him projected in right now. Can't say that with 100% confidence, but that is the way I have it projected, and I'm leaning right now. So
same.
Just general note on that situation. Some other questions we have from T. Lee. He wants to know who are highest conviction plays and favorite value plays. So just in terms of conviction, I mean, on the top end, LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Favorite contrarian play right now? Let me refresh the latest.
Sumner. I want that lineup to come out at 7:25 p.m. Eastern time. I want it to come out so late so nobody gets there, and only the 3.4K of you who all hit the button, right? I'll hit the like button. That's great. Edmund Sumner would be like my contrarian. Nobody is playing him right now because I'm assuming he starts.
Let me see what the ownership is right now on Ben Simmons.
I'll love that call too.
Simmons only project for 2% ownership right now. That is going to be my answer.
That is so good. Like, that can't be the case, right? Also, Kevin Durant's still at 3%. I don't believe that.
Right now, I'm going to say Simmons, because I don't think Simmons is going to become massively popular. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's going to be massively popular.
I just don't know what the minute ceiling is there. I think that might get some people to hit eject. The price keeps coming back up. He was at 6,100 last slate against Detroit. Only played 25 minutes there. Played 32 against Toronto in that spot. That was good to see. Like, I think there is an opportunity for him to get up to that 32, 34 range. I just don't know if that's every single time when you run out this game, considering Golden State, double-digit spread, all the things, yada, yada. Like, I get it. But yeah, 2%, you throw all of that away. Like, he's a great play at 2% if you were 7K, 8K. Like, you just have like that 50-point triple-double that could happen.
My filler arc says for a showdown question, Simmons or Sumner if he starts at captain. For captain, I'd prefer Simmons.
Yes, I would too.
All right, we've got those answered. How are you doing on your lineups, by the way?
I'm good. I mean, 6 minutes. I just have one thing to shore up because, again, I do not want to play Moses Moody. Same thing as yesterday. I was so adamantly against that play. I had 0%. Could not have disliked it more. This is an 11-game slate where there's late news that could show up. And there's just so many reasons that Moses Moody should not be in your lineups today.
All right. So I am assuming that this is a autocorrect issue, but Sniffs1234 is saying, how do you feel about Austin Rivers? So that part I understand. But then afterwards, I know Buzz girlfriend, but he has played high minutes lately. So I assume the other thing was an autocorrect issue. But oh, by the way, Emmanuel quickly starting.
Quickly starting. Okay, well, the McBride, it's not that he's just going to be overowned for what he should be. You should be finding ways to get to Emmanuel quickly. And I know he's like 5K or something on DK because I was toying through that. Where is he?
By the way, I don't like Austin Rivers.
Yeah, I don't like him either. He started at small forward the other day and I laughed. It was not fun. Let's see. Where is
I'm going to answer some of these questions really
yeah,
quick.
Go. I'm just trying to update next.
Buzz's girlfriend. I don't know what that's referencing. Sam Cassell Dance, okay to play 3 Lakers in DK single entry. Yes, I have no issue with that.
Yep.
S Reese 11, last man in for 3,500 on DK. Moody, Ty Jerome, or Eason. You got somebody better. For right now, of those options, it would be Moody for me. But if Edmund Sumner starts, he's also somebody we consider in the mix. But if he doesn't start, then the answer is going to be Moody for me.
Could be Patty Mills too. I have like a contingent, like my brain is also just, I will short circuit, but it's definitely something that could happen. Oh, it's Home Alone. Yes. There we go. Everybody wanted to let it be known.
Short circuit, Eric. That's what I want to see happen.
No, please don't.
Bloopy, Simons, or Fultz, last man in. I prefer Fultz today.
I prefer, dude, always Fultz. Like it's an 11 gamer. You can't talk about every play. I've been playing Markelle Fultz every damn day. I hope you've heard that because he's been in every fantasy score ever for me forever on Prize Picks, and that is carried over into No House Advantage, and it's carried over into DK. I like him on every site everywhere.
And here we go. Seth is making Christmas cookies with the wife's boyfriend. Got in a big fight over 2 things. 1, a peanut-shaped cookie is inappropriate for a cookie exchange. Disagree. 2, better value on FanDuel, Kuminga, or Congo. I prefer Kuminga.
Kuminga. And I don't love Kuminga, but Kuminga's the answer.
And let's see what other questions we got. All right. So super chats. Did we get more super chats that came in? Yes, we did. Brian Herm. Any flyers on Beauchamp for Milwaukee as a cheap value?
Nope.
No, he's been starting for them, and he's just kind of trash.
I saw some people talking about it earlier in the chat, and you just got to throw it away. Like he's not in play.
He's been starting, by the way.
Yeah, I have zero interest.
So this isn't like this is some totally new scenario.
Didn't he start against the Pelicans? Didn't I see that when I was watching that game? I think
he's been starting for them in games that Middleton's been out lately.
Yeah, I'm updating my lineups. Let's go. There we go.
Yep,
done.
I'm doing the same. I'm trying to get to Emmanuel quickly right now.
I just jammed a bunch of him, and then I'll swap into whatever number I want based on whatever. But like, I have such limited exposure to this first game that I could basically upload a dummy lineup and be fine.
Yeah, so quickly, I'm not exactly sure how much people are going to get to him, but we're talking about contrarian plays now. Like I like Quickly more than Moody. I like Quickly more than Sumner. Even if Sumner was to start, I really like Quickly right now. Quickly's good.
Quickly's just a solid basketball player. The other thing that Quickly likes to do is shoot the damn rock when he's on a basketball floor. He's 4,500 with dual eligibility. You saw last night in 23 minutes, he had a 30% usage. Do I expect him to have a 30% usage if he's starting alongside the likes of Barrett and Randall and Brunson? No, I don't. But he can still if he gets to 28 minutes, it almost doesn't matter. It makes up the gap for that. He's just a ridiculously good fantasy asset. He's been closer to 1 in previous seasons. He's at 0.93 this year. I feel really good about that.
Right. Uploading these lineups really quick.
I thought wasn't he over 5K on yesterday's slate? No, he was 4,600. I don't know why I thought that.
Sometimes you just think incorrectly.
It's
hard to remember these things sometimes. We got a super chat here from Devin Davis. Do you think it's fine playing Brogdon and Derek White in the same lineup? Yes, I do not have an issue with that. And although with that said, Quickly is becoming a higher priority for me now. Tim Hardaway Jr. with DFS and Kleba injured. They're just better value plays on the slate. So Tim Hardaway Jr. is not somebody I'm really getting to. Are you getting to him?
No.
Okay. Sunflower, last man in, Jalen Green or Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine.
15% fold.
Zachary Pinnell, Simmons or Vooch. I prefer Vooch to Simmons still, though. And then the Claw wants to know Monk, Robinson, or Brogdon on DK. I prefer Brogdon of those 3. And I think that hits on all the super chats. I'm pretty sure we got to all of them right now.
Awesome. See, we got back on track. I like Malik Willis now. I'm a Malik Willis fan. Different sport.
Okay. Did we get to questions in Discord?
I think so.
Yes. Who did you end up with your most rostered players?
I will pull that up here. I just pulled that there. LeBron James, Malcolm Brogdon, and Edmund Sumner. That is very obviously going to be changing, but I am right now under the assumption he'll be there. Thomas Bryant, Kevin Durant, Yuta Watanabe, Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, Mitchell Robinson, Ben Simmons, and Royce O'Neal. 14% of Royce O'Neal. Wow. I can't believe I got to that much.
All right. So for me, point guards, quickly Brogdon, Derek White, like just guards in general.
Yeah. Shooting
forwards
guard.
for me, LeBron and Durant, and then at center, Thomas Bryant. So that's where we
Gomez
are right
starting for.
There we go.
There it
next
is.
Starting lineup:
Simmons,
Simmons, Harris, O'Neal, Durant, Claxton.
All right. So everything about Edmund Sumner that has taken up so much of your valuable time today, it means nothing. So there you are. Might get to like 1% of him now. So cool. Simmons, Harris, O'Neal, Durant, Claxton. Can't wait for the tweets later saying, you said Edmund Sumner was a good play. I can't wait. That'll be fun.
What do you make of Joe Harris as a starter?
I think he can go out and shoot a basketball. I will say he's a tough guy to really nail down what to do with in terms of projection. With Kyrie Irving off the floor, let me rerun this because I had Sumner pulled up as my holder on add more funds. Let me go to this.
By the way, while you're doing it, if you guys want to get access to the tools we have over at Stokastic, what's the matter?
He's a sub 15% usage guy with Kyrie Irving off the floor. Like, I'm going to plug this in and nothing's going to change. He's still going to look bad.
You know what'll make him feel better? You know what'll make Eric feel better? Jordan, put the graphic up. Put the graphic up. You know, yeah. The graphic. That always makes him feel better. So you guys, bet MGM. If you want access to our tools for 2 months, the best way to get access by signing up at BetMGM using the link we have below, because a $10 deposit is going to get you 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum, but you also are going to get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000, and you keep this wonderful graphic of Eric Lindquist in circulation. So, Eric, look, I mean, just look at how happy he is. And the reason he's happy is because he knows you're going to sign up because you used our link. You've looked at that picture of him right there. Usman Unjum in chat, who I hope I pronounced his name correctly, saying, I imagine this is how Eric wakes up every day. Eric wakes up with his makeup already on. That is for sure. Sign up, use our link, 2 free months Stokastic plus Platinum, but also you're going to get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000 at BetMGM. Eric, what is it that you were saying before?
I don't know. People are saying inappropriate things. People are saying things you can't say.
They're saying
short bus, Eric. Jeez. Like, you can't say that. That's not okay. So Eric walks into court. What am I going to court for?
A number of transgressions.
I don't like the video until they put that graphic up of Eric. It's not Eric.
There we go. I appreciate it, Foggy Water.
It's Jay Leno.
Fensick says he loves you. That seems like I don't know. I don't know about that comment.
Love you too. I'll take whatever I can get. My life's difficult.
Eric is pissed. Hey, listen, Eric's an angry man. Sometimes he struggles to control his emotions.
Shut your mouth, Greg.
Everybody, if you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. So what are you going to do with Joe Harris here? Is he somebody you're going to end up playing now?
I am nervous that you almost have to throw some of this out the window, right? Like Joe Harris, 324 minutes, 14.8% usage with no Kyrie Irving on the floor. It's really bad from a fantasy perspective. He is a 0.69 DraftKings points per minute player without Kyrie Irving on the floor. That seems impossible, doesn't it? That is so bad.
How many minutes, though?
300 and change. What was it? 324.
I was going to say go back to last year, except he was hurt last year.
He was hurt, and yeah, it doesn't really apply. I don't know what it is. Yuta Watanabe 0.86 without Kyrie on the floor. Kevin Durant 1.52. Like, do you need a reason to play more Kevin Durant? There you go. Claxton 1.14. I think Claxton, fine contrarian option. Dayron Sharp, Edmund Sumner 0.94. Maybe I do get to a little bit of Edmund Sumner. Maybe he can be the hero that Gotham deserves off the bench. I'm going to take him and put him at 20 minutes just for fun and see what happens. 19, right around 19 fantasy point. I'm not going to get there. That's sad.
That, by the way, is way too many minutes, in my opinion. With him
I know. I just nuked it to try to have fun and see what happened. I think he's more than likely to play 14 minutes. I have him for 13. I'm not going to play any. Sad. I will remember you.
The time that Edmund Sumner was in your lineups and then wasn't in your lineups before the slate started. That's who.
Yeah, and now I'm having a candlelight vigil in my head for him. Don't let your life pass you by.
So what are we going to do in his honor now? Just for
I don't know.
guys
Just
in DFS and forget it ever happened.
Play Ben Simmons and take him out of my player pool. He's no longer in my player pool.
We've got John Baumgartner left us a super chat. There is no question. John, just throw your message into chat if you have a question here. You don't have to leave us another super chat. Just let us know what the question is. Because I see the super chat, but no question from John there. Did we have another super chat that just came in? We did not. We got the Hawks starting lineup, by the way. A little bit of a mix-up for the Hawks starting unit, so I think we should discuss.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. I got to the end of that sentence. I was just reading. Hello, Okongwu, as this price is starting to come down. Playing alongside John Collins. Interesting stuff.
And yeah, so Okongwu. So what the Hawks did last game is they started Bogdanovich and they just went really small and they brought Okongwu off the bench. Okongwu back starting now, though. Let's see, what is Okongwu priced at?
I'm looking at this rotation last game. I didn't look at it.
Okongwu is $4,900 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $5,200. I think he's playable as a starter. He wasn't somebody I was getting to coming off the bench. As a starter, though, I could get behind it. Okongwu this year as a starter.
Keon Collins did not share the floor at any point in that last game against the Magic. 0 minutes shared on the floor.
Okongwu is averaging 29.5 minutes per game as a starter.
All right, we found our value.
All right, weird. All right, let's a couple things at a time. First, Okongwu, are you going to be rostering him now?
Yes, sub 5K starting. He's now sharing minutes with Collins. I don't know how many they're going to have, but I can guarantee you anybody like Okongwu who's going to be a near fantasy point per minute guy who I thought was close to playable for me at 4,900. Now that he's starting, you take those minutes, you go from like 25, 26 to like 28, 29. That is a drastic difference for me. He will show up in lineups. Not anything crazy. He's not Thomas Bryant or anything, but he's going to actually be in lineups now.
Yeah, so Okongwu, I think, does look a little bit better. I'll rerun. Well, I'm not going to run lineups just with Okongwu because we've just got the Celtics starting lineup that certainly was not expecting this. So when you and I were discussing the Boston Celtics before, I was thinking it's probably going to be, not Peyton Pritchard starting, which is the case. So the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, who I assume must be min price or close to it.
Oh, 3K. Yeah, we're playing him.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard is $3,500 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Peyton Pritchard, like you said, 3,000, point guard only eligible. So whatever you thought about Edmund Sumner before, I think what if you were really smart, Eric, number one, you would have bet the better line on Bradley Beal the other night. But the other thing you would do also is you would have mentioned Peyton Pritchard instead of Edmund Sumner before.
Yeah, because I expected. Robert Williams, they're just going to play him. They're going to play him backup Al Horford. They're just not going to play him alongside each other. So Horford's going to play 32 minutes, depending on if it's a blowout or not. Robert Williams, he's going to play his 18 minutes off the bench. They just decided right now that they're just not going to play the two of them next to each other. So that's new information. Cool. Peyton Pritchard at 3K, you're just playing him because also if this game goes sideways, pretty good chance that could still happen. They're almost double-digit favorites here at this point. Pritchard will still play blowout run. There's a lot of scenarios where he closes this game. Now, like Robert Williams, is this trying to set him up to be a guy who closes next to Horford? I doubt it. I bet it's just a strictly you're backing him up at the 5 thing rather than them sharing the floor. This also makes me like Al Horford props if you were looking at that, just because not having to share the floor with Robert Williams, who would be playing the 5 for at least 6-8 minutes alongside each other to start off both the first and third quarter. That's interesting. I think 18.5 was his prevailing number. Let's take a look at no house advantage and see if there's anything there.
Can you pull that up, Jordan, or Eric? You read off to me because I don't have.
I'm going to put in Al Horford because I know I saw it. Nope, he's off the board. Everybody's off the board there.
Nobody on the board. What about any Nets guys? Are there any Nets guys on the board in no house advantage?
Let's see, Brooklyn. Yeah, so we've got nope. They're gone too. We still have Tatum and Brown. They took the other guys off, which is a good decision.
All right. So anything else? Anything else? Just a quick glance that looks of interest to you there.
Let's see. So John Collins sharing the floor with Okongwu. I mean, knowing that Okongwu isn't going to be backing him up, like, what are they going to do for the backup five here? Like, what is the Atlanta rotation going to look like? Frank Kaminsky playing backup five now? Does he like enter the rotation at all, or do they play Collins back? Yeah, okay, that has to be what it is.
It'll probably be like 28 minutes for Okongwu and then some minutes for Collins at center, and then Kaminsky plays the extra, 14 or something.
They have 17 and a half points for Bojan Bogdan, or for I said Bojan. I meant Bogdan Bogdanovic. I got to catch myself because I'm, forever attached to one of these individuals. But the under of 17 and a half, that is a big number over there. Let me see. Yeah. Odd Chopper under of 17 and a half is projecting out pretty well there. 54% expected win percentage. That's decent enough there. 5% ROI if you were to be in a book for it. No house advantage. I would like that under.
Okay. So update these Celtics. How many minutes do we think Pritchard is playing?
I put him in for 22. Obviously that isn't going to make his projection like go nuts for me. I am still on board with Thomas Bryant being the primary guy, but there's the minutes ceiling, like range of outcomes kind of a thing. It's hard for him to burn you now that he's starting. If he gets the start at the beginning of the first and the beginning of the third, he's been decent enough on the floor, over a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy over the course of this season. He had been better in the past, but I am not getting to him as much as what I was expecting.
So here's what I think the biggest impact is. I think we have to take some minutes from Brogdon and Derek White now, and they just look a little bit less appealing.
Because it's just another guard in the rotation, and he's not going to play the Marcus Smart role, but he's going to, I don't know. Now that we're even like talking through this, Marcus Smart would be playing 34, 36 minutes in this spot. Peyton Pritchard, I don't think it's a 1-for-1 swap now that he's just automatically starting. I think he probably plays 20 minutes, and you're probably going to see more run because now instead of Horford and Robert Williams sharing the floor, I think it strictly becomes no Blake Griffin whatsoever in this rotation. Luke Cornett, if there's foul trouble or something, which is possible, but like Horford and Robert Williams, I'm pretty sure are not going to share the floor now tonight. Whereas that was originally going to be the plan and what they've been doing. Grant Williams at 4K, I don't think I can get there, but like, I'm just trying to figure out what his minutes should be. He should be around 27. I think you could see more minutes as a result of this for Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon. Like Brogdon could legitimately go from being a guy who plays 27 to like 30.
I don't understand. Just for me, I was projecting Peyton Pritchard for very minimal minutes before. I have to give him minutes now. Some of those minutes have to come from Brogdon White. I don't think it means that it doesn't mean I'm projecting them for more minutes now. So you're going to give Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon
No. I know what you're saying. Yeah. You're correct. You're correct about that. Yes, you were correct. I misspoke. That is correct. But like, for me, what's interesting is all of the court time that would have had two players sharing a floor power forward center are now going to be strictly a backup. I don't think there's another center who really comes in. Luke Cornett, I'm going to project for like 4 minutes just because. Blake Griffin just completely out of the rotation entirely. Unless there's a blowout, he could come on. But like Peyton Pritchard, if you give him 24 minutes, he's going to show up a lot. I put him at 20 and I'm getting to like 12%.
I just reran my lineups and I have. So by the way, I'm playing 20 lineups today. I've Peyton Pritchard in 15. So 3 out of 20 lineups I ended with Peyton Pritchard.
3 out of 2015. Yeah. So I'm a little bit lower, but like, again, the minutes could be anywhere in a situation like this. Like that's really the difficult thing to pin down. Cause I mean, the man hasn't started this year. So we're really flying blind.
And also those minutes he plays is so I think he's somebody to roster, but he's not some kind of crazy play for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't think he's going to play 28 or 30 minutes or anything. Point one. Point two, also, the minutes he plays are going to be shared with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. It's hard to expect him for a lot of usage. So I think he's fine as a punt play, but there's still other guys that I'm going to have to prioritize over him. For what it's worth, our projections updated, we have him for about 14 fantasy points.
Oh, shit. Okay. I mean, I put him for 20. How many minutes do we have him for? We have him for like no minutes, 15 and a half. Yeah, you're not going to get him in a single lineup at 15 and a half minutes.
We got some questions to answer. We got some super chats, some questions in the Discord. First, Justo. Tatum as a pivot off of KD, Robinson as a pivot off of Bryant on DK. What do we think about this? I can make more of a case for Robinson over Bryant than I can for Tatum over KD. I just really like Durant today. I'm playing more Bryant than Mitchell Robinson, but in a single lineup, if he had to make one of those pivots, would you prefer Tatum off of KD or Robinson off of Bryant?
Robinson off Bryant. I like Mitchell Robinson today. I think I already established that.
The next super chat is follow-up from John Bumgardner. He wants to know, who is last man in for under 6K on DK? All right, so under 6K.
How far under are we talking? Because are we talking
under 6K? He's got one spot to fill.
Well, okay. Well, then I want to have it be something somewhat close because I'm going to project those guys for more than likely more raw points than Emmanuel Quickly. But Nicholas Claxton, really contrarian. Markelle Fultz is the answer. Never mind. Markelle Fultz.
I was going to say your answer is going to be Fultz, and then it wasn't Fultz, and
I just kept scrolling down, and then I got to the nutties of a guy I have 28% of.
Yeah, Fultz is the answer for me. We got some questions in our Discord channel as well. This one from Jets World. Rank Pritchard, Quickly, and Schroeder. Rank Quickly, Schroeder, Fultz, and Pritchard. So Pritchard, Quickly, Schroeder, Fultz. Okay, so I got, in terms of exposure for me, it is Quickly, then it's Schroeder, then it's Fultz, then it's Pritchard.
Correct. It's the exact same. You did say Fultz first or not? Schroeder?
No, I have more Quickly exposure than Fultz.
Okay. I do too. Weird. I just reran everything to react to this news. I'm getting a little bit less. I'm going Quickly, Fultz, Schroeder, and then, I have 2% now. I just updated. I made him 18 minutes, and I'm not getting to Pritchard.
Got some more super chats that just came in. First, Cat's Turd. Once again, our guy Cat's Turd. Does this make Vooch look better? I'm thinking of going Vooch and Bryant on DK, so no room for Okongwu. I don't think Okongwu starting has any real impact on Vooch personally.
None. Other than, it's a center that might not have gotten as much ownership that's going to pull a little bit, but, nothing that's going to pull away from Vooch shock. He's still going to be shocky.
Yeah, so for me, I prefer whatever you thought of Vooch before, you shouldn't change your opinion on it. I don't think this really makes any difference there.
Correct.
Devin Davis, rank the Boston guards, Brogdon, White, and Pritchard. So right now, in terms of my exposure, I have White, and then I have Pritchard and Brogdon, basically the same.
Yep.
The next question, JR, Quickly or Schroeder for FanDuel cash? Ideally, both of them.
Correct.
But if he has to pick one or the other, I'll just rely on who's more popular. So I'm going to pull up our ownership projections and see. Jordan, can you put the ownership projections on screen? I want to see who ended up being more popular between Quickly or Schroeder. Oh, well, nobody's playing Quickly right now.
Nope.
I'll say Dennis Schroeder just because he's more popular.
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder.
Tab Jones, thoughts on Naz Reid on DK if Gobert is out? Naz Reid has had Reid's had some really big performances in place of Gobert. A couple things though. Number one, I think Gobert is going to play. Point two, you could get to Reid, but there's a lot of centers to consider here. It's not going to be like the other slates where 95% of them because there's other guys to consider. So I would go from not having it at all to having him in, but I would still be prioritizing some other centers ahead of him.
I mean, I would play him almost 100% if we found out right now that Gobert was out. He's played 37 and 40 minutes of 2 of his last 3 starts here. He had the 12 minutes where he turned his ankle, and that was just a huge bummer because I had 100% of him there. His tag has gone from 4K to 4,600 to 4,700. It's now 5,900, but that doesn't change the fact that I would project him for right around 38 fantasy points, and that would show him up in just about every lineup I could get, especially because it's 7:20 p.m. Eastern time. I like where your head's at. That's something to keep in mind. But you're going to have enough Lakers. Everybody's going to have enough Lakers where I'll be able to react to that news, and I'm not worried about it.
And all right, that has us caught up on the super chats. Then some other questions we have in our Discord channel. First from Swaz. Favorite mid-priced guard, Quickly, Brogdon, or Schroeder? That is Quickly for me.
Yeah, they're all 3 good, but yeah, it's going to be definitely Quickly.
How much of Brogdon are you getting to now?
I'm finishing up some Celtic stuff because I've been kind of toying with if I want to have any kind of exposure. Like they could. I don't want to say this because this sounds just absolutely ridiculous, but like I think Al Horford's a guy that I'm going to get to quite a bit now.
Interesting.
He's sub 5K. He's not sharing the floor with Robert Williams. That means he's going to be playing primarily the 5. He has power forward eligibility, so I don't have to use a center spot on him, which is pretty important. I'm getting to around 14% of him. He's come up to around 9.4%. I think it's justified because, again, we have him at 27. What is he at? No, 29 minutes right now. Okay. So that projects him right at like 24. I think there's a lot of situations where, it's like 30, 32, and maybe him and Robert Williams do share the floor, and I'm actually wrong about that. I think that this is setting them up to not do that. But if this game stays competitive, Al Horford really makes sense as a guy who could play 32.
Let me see. Did I have any lineups with Al Horford? I've got a couple of them. So, I mean, the biggest issue I have is just with Peyton Pritchard starting, everybody looks worse on Boston. It's just minutes that I had to give to somebody that I was not otherwise anticipating to get minutes. But I do think that Al Horford is... I'll say this. I think I might prefer Al Horford to Malcolm Brogdon.
Interesting. At their current ownership, I probably agree with you. I'm just kind of like toying around with what I think this looks like. You have to give Al Horford a better fantasy point per minute rate, sharing the floor with Peyton Pritchard than having Robert Williams. That's just like inherently that just has to, from everything I know about basketball, just being logical. How would it not be a positive for Al Horford to be starting alongside a small 6-foot guard as opposed to another big man? Like a good big man with a good fantasy point per minute rate.
So the reason is just because I think there's a chance he plays less minutes now.
Okay.
Like I just Pritchard's taking minutes. I think a couple of them, and I know that there's no Marcus Smart, but still, like I didn't think Pritchard was going to play a very big role earlier. Now, some minutes come from Derek White, some minutes come from Brogdon, some minutes come from Horford. There's not less minutes for Robert Williams to play. That would be the reason why. But I do think Horford is at least in play today. Chris Albers has left us a super chat. None a decent GPP play. He got 20 minutes last night. Keep in mind that LeBron is back now, and LeBron was not playing before. So as far as Kendrick Nunn goes, if you're playing the late slate, cool. But as far as the full slate goes, I didn't get to Kendrick Nunn. He's been absolutely terrible this season.
Yeah, he went off last game. I think that's probably what he's looking at. It's a little bit of box score chasing. Didn't they get completely blasted in Phoenix? And he played 20 minutes with a 31% usage rate. Hey, if you want to say that the Lakers lose by 25 and he miraculously plays 20 minutes again, sure, you could take some shots at 3K. It's an 11-game slate. We could have news come up in the next half hour, specifically highlighting Rudy Gobert, Domantas Sabonis, things that would just make much more sense to be taking punts with. Any exposure I had to a Kendrick Nunn, if you were like in a utility or something, I would be immediately turning that into whoever the starter was for Domantas Sabonis. I'd be immediately turning anything into, Minnesota situations with if there's no Gobert. Like it's such a theoretical thing. Like it's a very specific outcome you're looking for Kendrick Nunn. I don't think you should do it today.
Next super chat is from, we just got a bunch of them came in. JR, SGA or Sabonis for more FanDuel points? That is Sabonis for me.
Sabonis, same.
By the way, is there anything more fictional than the initial injury reports for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Nothing, not a single thing. Well, I mean, I took Duke on a walk this morning and all of a sudden, like, I'm not even surprised anymore. It's like Giddey now questionable. But what are we even doing here? Why have injury reports? They make a mockery of it.
Yeah. So what they do is it's just
They're not updating
the
it.
stale injury report gets uploaded, and then the actual one gets uploaded around 1:30 Eastern time. But the other one before, they just put up the same injury report as the game before. Orion, FanDuel, GPP, Brogdon and Kuminga, or Derek White and Royce O'Neal. I'll say Brogdon and Kuminga.
Brogdon and Kuminga.
Next super chat, also from JR, Quickly or White for last man, and I prefer Quickly to White.
Same.
That handles the super chats. Then in Discord, I saw a couple of questions that came in. One was about Kobe White. Swaz wants to know, why is Kobe White pulling crazy ownership? Yeah, he is picking up more ownership than I think he should. Kobe White is currently projected for 26% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's projected for 21% ownership. I just think there's better guys to roster at guard.
What are we even doing here?
I haven't projected for 21 fantasy points. He's cheap, but there's just other guys I like better.
Yeah, it's just, if you made me play any of these chalky bulls, because there are a lot of them, I probably go Levine. Well, I definitely go Levine 1, Vooch 2, but I'm not playing a lot of Vooch because I want to use centers elsewhere. I think he's okay. I'm getting around 12%, but like I'm less than half the field. That's not any vote of confidence there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason that he's picking up ownership is because he's going to play bigger minutes today than normal. Because if you look at the Bulls right now, by the way, Nurkic is starting for the Blazers. We just got their starting lineup in. So the Chicago Bulls. So one thing also is that I do wonder, because Caruso was listed as questionable earlier, if people were just assuming he wasn't going to play. Because we've got some guys who are out for the Bulls. Javonte Green is out. Goran Dragic is out. Derek Jones is out. That means Kobe White probably plays mid-20s minutes, but he hasn't been a great fantasy producer this year. It's hard to get usage on the Bulls as well, because DeRozan, Levine, Vooch, these are guys who take a lot of shots. So points per dollar, I think Kobe White is a good play. If we're not considering anything else, it's just, do I think Kobe White is a good play relative to his price tag? The answer is yes, but I just think there's better plays relative to their price tags and ownership being considered.
Yes.
And all right. The next question that we have is none. We've answered all of them. So there we go.
Kendrick Nunn?
Are you making some swaps to your lineups?
I am. I'm getting it all figured out and swapped out and making sure that I do have a placeholder situation for some Naz Reid in my life, which isn't that hard when you have as many Lakers as I do. Now my 3 highest owned players are all Lakers today.
If you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, stay glued to all of our different ownership projections, player projections for the rest of the night, because Eric and I handled all the news that has come out to this point, but we still have waiting on later in the day. Domantas Sabonis, questionable. Paul George, questionable. Rudy Gobert, questionable. Harrison Barnes, questionable. Ivica Zubac, questionable. Reggie Jackson, also questionable. So there's a lot of key players here that are on the injury report still. And you and I, Eric, we're going to get out of here in about 2 minutes. But which of these players are you waiting on the most you anticipate could end up changing your lineups?
Yeah, Domantas Sabonis would quite a bit. I have 22% of him at center right now. Obviously, if he doesn't play, I'm going to have 0 and need to do things about that. But I have a ton of Thomas Bryant, which would turn into a ton of Naz Reid in the event that Rudy Gobert got ruled out. We're going to have that news way later than normal for some of these Naz Reid slates. He's also almost 6K, which might give some people sticker shock. Remember, he's over a fantasy point per minute guy, over a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy. He should be projected for north of 35 minutes, and then that's going to make him show up in every lineup I can possibly get him into.
All right, that is going to do it for us today. Once again, if you guys didn't do it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Another shout out to No House Advantage, the sponsor of our show today. If you guys have not signed up for NHA, click on the link below in the description box. You can get up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. Take advantage of all the overlay they have, as well as their new props against the house that you could play over there, which we have projections for over at Stokastic.com. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck. Stay tuned to all the injuries.